Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex, and in episode number 176. And for a so-called intelligence, it's pretty darn stupid. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
Good.
Pretty darn stupid.
Finals beating you that badly?
Oh. Yeah. This 12-page paper was up one side and down the other.
What was it in?
Social media.
12 pages on social media.
Social media,
Yeah.
like Facebook and Twitter and
I don't know if I could fill
stuff that you don't do.
I had to explain...
That's why it was so hard. He doesn't engage in it like we do.
Somebody explained to me
I don't
the
think I
idiocy
engage in it. I don't think I could talk about it that long.
of writing 12 pages about a format in which you can only use 140 characters.
See,
Did you
that's how
include Friday
I
Night
would have
Humor on
done it.
paper?
That's how I would have done it right there. No, seriously, I'd have done 140 characters, and then 140 characters of different topics or different parts of what I was talking about. And then got to the end and used that as an example.
No, actually, what it was is we had to do an analysis. We had to put together a social media presentation plan for a business in SWOT format, which is strengths, weaknesses, all stuff we didn't cover in class. I was like, really? Everybody complained about it.
I
Like,
bet.
what are we doing
If you didn't
here?
cover it, why are they making you do it?
So I have a homework assignment for all of you so that you can know my pain. I want you to
no.
go. You don't have to write anything.
Oh, all right.
I want you to go onto YouTube and look up a little thing I like to call Mike's Golf Shop. Because that's what I chose. That's the business that I chose to do my paper on. And God bless him. He's this little guy out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And he got out there in front of his store with his iPhone. He's holding it up, shows the sign, shows the building behind him. He's like, "Hi, this is Mike, down here at Mike's Golf Shop, where we buy golf clubs."
We buy golf.
And I said to myself, this man needs a social media platform. So that's what I did my paper on.
Nice.
Yeah, he apparently, his little self-made how-to video was featured on Tosh.0 and went through the roof because it went viral.
Oh, man.
And he said his business
Well,
has
he
gone
didn't
up
need
like...
you. He got Tosh.
His business has gone up like 5,000% since he put that ad out. Yeah. Where we buy golf clubs.
So we're recording late again because of
My
finals.
apologies. It's my fault.
Did you get to do anything fun besides finals?
Yeah, like I said, I worked all this is the really kicker is because of the way my classes were scheduled. I've had Tuesdays and Thursdays off, and I work the rest of the time. Well, when your paper is due Tuesday, and you haven't had a chance to do anything because of your work schedule. I mean, it's like I can't do it over the weekend because I work every day leading up to it, and then Tuesday was the day it was due. So it was like that's why we're recording late because it's like there's no way I can. I mean, I didn't even go to shows this week, so I still haven't watched Game of Thrones this past week yet either.
Well, yeah, you're 2 weeks behind them, though, right? Because you guys don't watch...
Yeah, because we don't watch...
You don't watch
Well,
this
2 weeks from us, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's that. But no, I really... I got that one done, and I turned in my final video project and my storyboard, and everything's done except I've got one more final tomorrow. And theoretically should be an easy one. And then I'm out. It's like... done. For the semester, anyway. So. What?
Sorry. I'm over eating these fries, and I had a flashback to our first failed podcast that we tried to do, and you were in the corner eating potato chips.
It was a true Family Guy moment back then, too. I got the bag, and I'm opening the bag, and he's looking at me, and I'm rustling. You know, I get the bag open, and I get a chip out, and they're both staring at me as I go.
How many people know this? I'm not even sure Keith knows this. Sean and I did a podcast called 7 Minutes of Garbage. Well, I think we got 4 episodes recorded.
4.
One of them got up on a website, I think. Maybe 2. Can't remember.
Did they ever actually get uploaded?
Oh, yeah, there was one. I think it's still floating around out there somewhere.
I had to go look it up. I remember you telling me about it, but I never
terrible.
looked into it.
It was a great intention. I thought it was a good idea. We executed it poorly. We had no direction. We just
Well, it was
that birthed the eunuch or eunuch.
That's a great story. Still that one. The eunuch. No, it was Glenn, Dave, and I, and we'd get together, and Glenn would kind of rummage through magazine articles and find something interesting, and then we would spend 7 minutes talking about it.
Okay.
That was literally 7 minutes of garbage.
Good premise. It just didn't. It was just executed poorly.
It was like traveling the Vortex if we put a timer on.
Yeah.
Before we got to the Doctor Who part of it. Just go this long, then stop. So,
I think our theme song was Jive Talk. It was the open. Yeah. Wow.
I still have those somewhere.
I think I do too.
You should totally put that on as a
Side trips.
A side trip.
Way to the side.
When we a short
Sorry, I
trip,
didn't mean to derail you. I just had that flashback. I was sitting there trying to eat.
It won't be.
I could hear myself going.
Won't be a short trip. It'll be a sidestep.
You didn't get any movies watched?
Oh well, we did watch X-Men 3: Last Stand because I was going to kill somebody. I got done and I went to deliver my paper, and I didn't realize we have a son. Not like a boy, but that big ball of gas in the air. I hadn't seen it in like 3 days. And I was like, oh, wow, look. Just kind of had a moment. Broke down, cried. Outdoors. But, no, Mel and I watched X3. And
X3? You mean X-Men Last Stand?
X-Men Last Stand. X3 is Triple X, that Vin Diesel movie. I've come to the term. Now, I never hated it as much as I think everybody else did, you know.
Right.
I think it's a fitting wrap-up for that particular universe. I think it's really sad that we lost all of the character development from the first two films in order to have a war. And I think that, realistically, the first half of the movie is really pretty good.
That's not bad.
And then all of a sudden it takes this kind of tonal shift about the midway point. And it gets really dark and odd, and not like dark in a good way, not like, oh, okay, I don't mind that you're killing characters off and that this is, it just, I don't know, just the whole thing, it just has this weird tonal shift to it, and it gets really strange, and I don't like the second half of it, even though, I mean, like I said, the war in of itself is fine, it doesn't bother me, and I'm glad we finally got
I think it just,
Pyro and Iceman
I think it's
facing
something
off,
that should have been paced out over a couple more films.
yeah.
Or just dedicated an entire movie to that storyline.
Right.
Yeah, it just had too many stories juggling.
And then, you know, Porcupine Boy, worst mutant ever. Let me give you a hug and then kill you. So many.
Well, he didn't. In the comic books, he didn't have quills. So I don't even remember what his power was. Comic book.
I didn't even like Angel. I was all excited about Angel when that movie came out.
Angel's underutilized.
Yeah, underutilized character.
Beast really is too. I mean, he gets more to do, but not as much as he should.
Beast is one that I think should have showed up more
earlier on in the
earlier
series.
on. Not maybe not a regular, not maybe like a main, but yeah. Other than that, we get one. Well, we get a picture. We get him on CNN or something in a.
And it's not even him blue.
No, and it's not Kelsey Grammer either.
Kelsey Grammer is so good as Beast.
Yeah,
so really is really good.
It's as soon as I saw that they had cast him back so long ago, I went, "Oh, that's the perfect choice."
Yeah,
I didn't know he was going to do the physical stuff, but he handled that swimmingly too. I'm sure that he's got a double as well, but I really believed.
It was him. Yeah,
and I still laughed at the Juggernaut line. Don't you know who I am? That was the funniest line ever.
Don't you know who I am?
Yeah. Go internet. And I'd completely forgotten when Wolverine sneaks into the camp and he starts slicing up people that one guy grows his arms back.
Yeah.
The look that Wolverine had, I had the same look. I was like, oh yeah, and for some reason that struck me as funny, so I started laughing. And then I've been spoiled by that, I don't remember what show it is, but there's a show, I think it's one of the ones that Julian had us watch at shows one time where they were spoofing X-Men, and Xavier's going through the files, and he has Angel walk into his...
it's where they were firing him.
He was firing him. It was called EX Men. And he says, so you fly? He says, well, yeah. And? He goes, do you know how many X-Men fly and do something incredible? I don't need you. He goes, no, you need me. I can help. He goes, no, you're a giant bird. And he starts being really mean and nasty. Bird, man, bird. Would you like some pasta salad? How about if I regurgitate it? So every time Angel would show up in the movie, I'm going, starts laughing.
And it's a shame because Ben Foster is such a good actor.
I know. And Mel's like, what? I'm like, I'll tell you later. It's just... So, yeah. That was the one fun thing.
Fun.
Yeah.
The one fun
thing. We had Katrina over the weekend. I didn't get to spend any time with her.
No.
She was sad.
Oh.
I think I'm going to make up for it, but I'm going to go buy her a tricycle.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'm that parent. I'm going to buy my way back in his good graces. Sam's has got the cutest. They're Schwinn's. They're, metal tricycles with the wooden backboard and everything. But they're so cute. So, it's a tiny trike. We'll get one summer use out of it, and then she'll outgrow it. But,
Well.
That's what I did this week.
Glenn, what'd you do?
A whole lot of nothing. We watched X-Men Origins Wolverine on Thursday, right? We did it Thursday?
No, we did it Wednesday.
We did it
because we
Wednesday.
recorded Tuesday last
Oh, we did record Tuesday last week. So, yeah, we watched that.
That was better than I remember.
It's one of those...
Two-thirds of it is better than I remember.
Yeah. It's one of those movies that I never had as much issue with it. I'm the same way, but I'm the same way with all of the X-Men films so far. Is I never think they're as bad as everybody pans them, but it's one of those... You won't own it?
I won't.
It's one of those ones that the more I watch it, maybe it's I get some of the little nuggets out of it. I appreciate something a little, not the whole movie, but I appreciate something out of the movie a little more, and so it becomes more enjoyable.
Or you become numb to the stupid things.
Well, that could be too. Well, that's the thing is you watch something, and then if you're irritated or mad about it,
second time it doesn't seem to bother you as much.
It doesn't seem to bother you as much, especially the little things. Because that's the thing is the first time I watched X-Men Origins Wolverine, I was a little frustrated by the little things, not realizing that there was going to be one big thing at the end that was going to really piss me off.
Was the little things the claws? Because I still stand that the claws look the worst than that. They look like they're hand-drawn.
I have no quarrels with... I mean, they're not as good as some films, but I have no quarrels with the special effects. They were fine.
Oh, I don't have quarrels with the special effects. It's just the claws.
Or the CGI or anything.
The metal claws was the only bad thing.
Yeah.
The only bad special effect I thought in the movie.
Oh, I thought they were...
Well, it's because they went down to Walmart and bought a plastic Wolverine claw set.
Yeah.
It looked like they went to, 2D animators and said, here, put claws on this. Make them shiny.
That's actually after the final tomorrow. Mel and I are sitting down and watching X-Men Origins, which I've still not seen. So
I'll be interested to see what you think of it.
And you do or do not own it?
I do not own it because I hadn't seen... Well, not that means anything. I had to revamp that statement. So I rented it from work.
Ah.
So.
I was never going to run out and buy it, but I found it in the $7 bin.
I wouldn't even pay $7 for it.
I found it in the $7 bin at Walmart.
I would maybe pay $2 on Black Friday. Maybe.
But only if I was out for something else and I happened to see it because I wouldn't go out on Black Friday for it.
No.
I'm surprised Sean's not this way, but I'm a completist. If I've got one X-Men movie, I have to have all X-Men movie, no matter how bad it is.
Even my level of anal retentive must-have all takes a backseat to the... Well, like Spider-Man 3, I don't own. Because I can't bring myself to... It's so bad.
That's another one that people are haters on that movie. And it's another one that it was the weakest of the three, but it wasn't terrible. And there's things in it that annoyed me and frustrated me.
Bad things in it.
I disagree. I think that overall it was a fine movie. There's things that frustrated me about it, and I felt it was rushed. It was packed with too many villains at the time. But overall, I thought it was a fine film. It wasn't. I didn't hate it. It was still Raimi directing it. It was still Raimi style. It was bloated, but it was good. It was still the same Spider-Man that Tobey Maguire delivered in the first two films, even with the emo weird segue moment they went with, and then I mean,
Which
the actors,
was
and,
funny.
all the actors and actresses
Until
did
about
a fine
the
job,
5-minute
so.
mark, and then it became really uncomfortable
Well, yeah,
and sad.
And then he became a jerk.
It's got its flaws, but I'm not a hater of that movie either. I mean, it's one of those films that I went when it came out. I went, I have to own that one. So I mean, I bought it. I think people.
Maybe I need to watch it again. I honestly haven't watched it since the theater.
I think the problem is people have way high expectations for certain things, and I think maybe I lower my standards for some.
No,
actually, you know what? With each subsequent film of a franchise that comes out, I lower my standards each time.
Well,
because I have found that I don't get disappointed as often,
especially when it comes to the third movie.
The law of averages should definitely apply there. You should not be excited over the sequel to something, but.
Well, it typically
we need a whole other podcast to go through what's wrong with Spider-Man 3 from a fundamental. There are a couple of films like that where I own a few. Now, I will admit there's also a few that I own because, yes, I found it on a great deal on Black Friday for $2. It was like, all right. I own the Matthew Broderick Godzilla, which I don't think is a horrible film.
That's the wrong reason to own a film. That's the wrong reason to buy something because it's cheap. That's silly. I own a film because I like it, not because it was cheap.
Yeah. Like I said, the Matthew Broderick Godzilla, I own that one because it was cheap, but because I also don't think it's as horrible as everybody makes it.
Well, I'm the same way. It's not a good
fine.
Godzilla movie, but it's a good action film.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's a good disaster flick.
Yeah, disaster film.
So, and I do own all 4 of the Batman films, but mainly I own the 4th one just because I like to point and laugh at it.
I don't own any of the Batman films, which is weird.
Really?
Yeah, I kept waiting. Well, because I was going to get. Actually, I had 3 of them on. I actually had all 4 of them on VHS, and then I was going to replace them when they came out on DVD, and I never did. And then by the time I got around to it, I thought, I should replace those because I'm getting rid of my VHS. And I thought, I'll just wait till I get them on Blu-ray. And I just waiting to get them on Blu-ray for some reason.
There's a 4 film favorites Blu-ray set. You get all 4 of them in one slim Blu-ray case
for $5.
Probably not that. I think it's 20. Actually.
Then I can't afford it yet.
Pretty close, actually.
I think it's 20.
Black Friday, I picked up the first one for like $5 on Blu-ray.
I'd probably buy it for $5.
But yeah, can't own Spider-Man 3.
No, I plan to own Batman.
Man of Steel, even though the flavor's all off.
I don't even own Dark Knight Rises yet. I just never have picked it up on Blu-ray. It's a great film. I just haven't had the occasion or cause to do so.
Well, Rises isn't as good as the other 2. That kind of breaks the third mold. I think it's not as good, but it's not as low as everything else, as all the other like third superhero movies.
Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
You said Rise, and I went Apes.
Oh,
I was
no.
trying. That's not a third. Is he talking Escape?
Rises.
No. Okay.
Dark Knight Rises.
Dark Knight Rises. I got you.
Did you do anything else?
Celebrate Mother's Day.
And Holly's birthday, right?
And Holly's birthday at my mom and dad's. We had a barbecue and cake and ice cream.
Did you have a good birthday?
Yeah. That was
Happy
it.
birthday, Holly.
That was all I did. Nothing too exciting. Been watching all the season finales of everything. In fact, Arrow was on tonight, but I haven't seen it yet.
And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
was last night. Did you finally get to watch it?
Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah, it was really good. Finally found its feet. Although I
don't think it's ever been bad.
No, I haven't either. And I mean, it certainly got better, and I could see some of the complaints that people had. But overall, it's been a great series. I don't care how in the wilderness it felt. Yeah, I thought it was good. It had some good, compelling stories.
Pretty much all paid off.
I think too many people wanted it.
Part.
I think the problem was ABC and Joss Whedon promised that it was going to be part of the cinematic universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, from the get-go.
Well,
and it really wasn't. Well, aside for some name drops, it really wasn't what they promised. Well, but it got to be what they promised.
I don't know.
That's true.
Keep in mind, I haven't watched anything other than like the first 5 minutes of the first episode. But my understanding is that it wasn't necessarily what was promised, but it was what we expected.
Yeah, people had their expectations way too
high. That's why people had their expectations way too high, because that's what they were saying.
And I thought to myself, okay,
you didn't set your expectations high
in the pilot,
but a lot of people did.
That it's going to go
and the reason I can say a lot of people did is because as you read the reviews and the process and the critics and everything, that's exactly what they kept complaining about, was the fact that it didn't have enough of a footing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's what they all said. This was just in all along. And it's based on the promise that they got. Now, I went into it the same way, not having too many expectations, because I knew it was a new show. They had to find their own stories, and then later on they would tie into the universe as needed. And that's exactly what they did. And so that's why I've enjoyed that story from the very beginning, because I didn't set my expectations high on a promise. So... And then ABC, I don't know, ABC and Just came through on the promise.
Oh, absolutely.
It just wasn't from the get-go, like everybody expected.
Yeah. And any previous Joss Whedon fans should know that it takes a little bit to build to the awesome. Yeah. And there wasn't even an instance in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like Dollhouse, where there was just some bad episodes.
Yeah. I think some of the best writing on that show was the first 3 episodes when Joss was actually writing.
Well, I think Jed and Morris has been doing a good job with it.
Yeah, they do a fine job.
And they have a very similar voice to him, I think.
The stories have always been good. Some of the best writing, though, has been when Joss is writing. That's all I got. What'd you do, Keith?
We watched 42. The Jackie Robinson baseball movie.
Right.
How was it?
That was pretty good,
I've heard
actually.
good things about it.
I really enjoyed it.
I never watched it because I was disappointed. I thought it was going to be Hitchhiker's Guide.
I found it really enjoyable. It was interesting how much Harrison Ford's character it's as much his story as it is Jackie Robinson's, which was kind of neat. And I didn't know a lot about Jackie Robinson in general, so I was enlightened. And the guy did a good job with it. Alan Tudyk did a really good job in being despicable, which is pretty impressive. There was something else I was going to say about it, but I don't remember what now. And then we also watched Winnie the Pooh, the 2011 film.
And?
I'm torn about it. It has the spirits of the previous ones, but it feels like it doesn't quite reach the level of storytelling, if that makes sense. Like, they were trying to... Maybe if they had done a more original story, instead of trying to take Hufflumps and Woozles and tweak it, and do something similar to what's came before, I would have enjoyed it more. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking Winnie the Pooh.
And it's not... It was a completely brand new story, wasn't it? It wasn't a
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
I think the charm is that while they've made a lot of changes from the source material in the first set, the Mini Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, they were still based solely on the core of the original writing.
When there's only 2 books of Winnie the Pooh stories, you're going to run out.
Right.
And it's not so much that I felt like they should have been more original with their storytelling. Like, they could have had the style and the characters weren't very different from what I've known before, but the spirit, I don't know, there's just something about it that felt like they were trying to retread something instead of doing something new in the same tone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you're right. But however, how much of the straight-to-video stuff have you watched and all of the other little in-betweens they've done?
That's true. I haven't watched a lot
the Tigger
of those.
movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Tigger movie.
This was far and beyond
above those
anything that they've done between the adventures, the mini adventures of Winnie the Pooh and Winnie the Pooh. And so I went into it seeing the charm that the first one had, with a little different take and a much better storytelling than they have been doing. And don't get me wrong, the things in between are geared towards kids.
Well, yeah,
and they're quite enjoyable.
They're all
my daughter loved.
Well,
kids. Yeah, but I mean, it's more of a family audience for, I think, the 2 bookend films. Everything in between is really geared towards 3 to 8-year-olds. And so when I still appreciate it, I still enjoy watching those stories. Caitlin enjoyed those stories, but after seeing everything that came between, I think that this elevated the movie so much more, because it felt like they were hitting that family level as opposed to that churning out something for kids to mindlessly watch. So.
Now I don't know if I'll go back and watch some of those in between.
the Tigger movie was cute. It was that's the
Tigger
best.
Movie's cute.
Yeah, that's the best of all of those. But
that's
it still
on
maintains
Netflix,
that.
I think so.
But it still maintains that level of child humor as opposed to like the broad family humor that I think that the 2 feature-length films. I use that too loosely, but that's what they consider them.
Yeah. And it took me a little bit to get used to Craig Ferguson as Owl, but I really liked him in the role after I got used to it. And The guy who did Eeyore, I thought was pretty good. I mean, you can't.
Not as good as Optimus Prime, though.
Yeah, you're right. It
That's
wasn't
the guy
him.
who does Eeyore. Is the guy who voices
But
Optimus
I
Prime.
went.
It's a different guy.
It's
But I went and looked in
Peter
the
Cullen.
many adventures. It wasn't the same actor. I don't think it wasn't him. It wasn't Optimus in the many adventures. I don't think.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Was it?
Yeah.
Should be Peter Cullen.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
Peter
thinking
Cullen.
of Rabbit. I think.
Rabbit is different. Yeah.
Rabbit's
Well,
different.
Because
even Pooh's different.
Well,
Different
not
actor.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the guy who does Pooh and Tigger does a really good job. You can't tell the difference. Absolutely
exactly
not.
the same.
But the guy who did Rabbit and Eeyore passed away, or not Eeyore, the other guy, Owl passed away. So that's why. And then I watched Pacific Rim.
Had you not seen that?
I had not seen that one. I had so much fun watching that movie. I don't know if I would say it's a good movie. It's cliche, but I didn't mind it. It had some great world building, and I ended up going out and buying the Blu-ray the next day. That was actually part of a bigger purchase of other Doctor Who DVDs I made. That was my number 5.
It's very much like exactly what you said. Not necessarily a good movie, but you know what? We've got giant monsters and giant robots slugging it out. All right, go.
And really, what I was impressed by, there was much more to it than I expected there would be. I expected more. There was more depth than I expected. Unlike Transformers, where it seems like it's all just robots fighting each other. There was more depth. There's more thought put into it. It wasn't just giant aliens and robots fighting. There was more to it than that, and that's what I really liked about it, I think, more than anything else.
But there were giant robots.
But there were, yes. And those were some great bits. But there were large chunks where they weren't doing that. There's like an hour where they're not fighting aliens.
Yeah.
And they're exploring and everything. I think it's a well-paced story. A fairly well-thought-out story, despite being predictable.
Yeah.
And Burton Gorman was a great surprise in it. I had no idea he was in it.
Oh.
Owen.
Owen. A great role, too.
Oh,
really.
yeah, it really was. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I can't remember the last movie I watched like that I had so much fun watching that I went out and bought it the next day.
Speaking of,
Now,
You still haven't seen it, right?
granted, had I been not going to the video store, and if they had not had it, and I would have gotten something else, I don't know if I would own it yet. Does that make sense? I got it because it was also convenient for me, because
Yeah.
I was at a place where I could get it the next day.
Yeah.
speaking of people showing up, you did watch Game of Thrones, right?
Oh, yes. Well, that was in the promo.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see.
And it was
I didn't
announced
see
a
it.
while ago.
See, and that was what blew my mind, because when I saw him, I went, surely I would have. My first thought was, oh, that's. I don't know what to say anything because I'd like him to be surprised.
Did you know the actor who's going to show up?
I know nothing.
Okay.
I go,
Yeah.
oh, that's. And I went, maybe not, because surely I would have heard he was going to be in this.
I remember hearing back when I think they filmed that episode that they had him cast.
Unfortunately, we can't tell. We can't even refer to who we're talking to our listeners, so maybe we shouldn't talk about that anymore. But anyway, I was pleasantly surprised by it.
Yeah. And then other than that, spent time with my sister and family. You're good.
We didn't say
We didn't say who it was.
We never spoiled it.
What? Who?
You'll just have to see.
Yeah, just Mother's Day.
You know, when Matt Smith shows up in Game of Thrones, I blew it.
Introduced my mom and cousin to Frozen, who'd never seen it before. They both really liked it. Yeah, that was about it.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to join Brittany's tweet along
Yeah,
on
neither
Saturday
did I.
night for Frozen. I didn't intended to, and our day got away from us, and
I don't know
just-
if I'll get to do...
I lost
Saturday
track of
nights
time.
just aren't good for me to do tweet-alongs, unfortunately. But speaking of tweet-alongs, go to our website and vote for when you want to do Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. What?
Oh, Conquest isn't that bad. It's the other one.
they're both not bad. They're both
I think
Apes
Battle's
films.
my least favorite of all of them.
I could see that. The poll is currently open, but it will close on May 17th. So you've only got a couple more
Saturday.
days.
By the time this comes out, we'll have 2 days.
Yes. Right now, Tuesday, May 20th is in the lead. And I've taken
Spoilers.
I've taken into account Disney with Friends and the Flicks with Friends with X-Men in planning these. So you got a choice of about 5 different days there.
You guys are killing me.
And don't forget, tomorrow night we're doing, which will be Thursday night this week because we postponed it a day. We'll be doing X-Men First Class, which will be along at 11:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time. All right, all that's out of the way.
And we're still discussing how we're going to do Marvel.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like. I don't know. I don't know if I liked doing apes a month apart. I think almost every other week would be better. It just seems too spread out between the films.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. We'll discuss it.
You won't have as many newcomers, though, to the Marvel stuff, I don't think.
Well, that's true.
You got a lot of
People can
newcomers.
jump in
Yeah.
wherever they want. And they've seen them all.
All right, well, let's move on to news.
News.
Good news, everyone.
First up, they've announced a new filming location. Okay, spoilers for anyone who wants to avoid any sort of Series 8 news now.
That's what we're going to be talking about for the next several minutes.
So keep that in mind. For the first time
I
since
better leave. I don't want to know.
For the first time since 1984, the Doctor Who production team is heading to Lanzarote. The Doctor is returning to the scene of an old adventure, but there have been sinister changes since his last visit. That's the quote from the BBC. For those that aren't aware, Lanzarote was last used in Doctor Who for filming the Peter Davison story Planet of Fire. So you can kind of take that as you will.
Well, I think that's where people are getting it, because the way that's worded, it makes it sound like he's going back there.
Yes.
And it was Lanzarote in Planet of Fire, too, right? That was the locale.
It was a plant. That was where they filmed it.
Right, but I thought that's where Planet of Fire takes place at the beginning.
I don't think so.
I thought that
Desert
was...
World of Sarn.
Oh, is that what it
Sarn,
was?
yeah.
Well, then no.
But they're saying that they're not saying if it's Sarn. They're not saying what the location is. Just that we're returning to a previous location.
It just happens to be a good spot to film.
Yeah.
Deserted planet.
There's
Desert planet.
random speculation involving either going back to Planet of Fire and what could be going on with that, or to another fiery place where we last saw Peter Capaldi. So who knows? But we don't really know. We'll find out when it airs. We don't even know an episode title or who's directing that episode.
Well, if big changes have happened in Lanzarote, which is, we're assuming that you wouldn't mention big changes in Lanzarote unless it was going back to Sarn. Maybe Turtle's making a
what he
return.
says is he's returning to the scene of an old adventure, but there have been sinister changes since his last visit. Lanzarote is the filming location.
Right, Lanzarote is the real-world filming location,
that's
which they said was Sarn in the show.
Two separate sentences.
Yeah, I think it's two separate ideas there. Or could be taken as either one idea or two separate ideas.
Yeah. They're being vague on purpose.
Right, but big changes are afoot from...
If it is Sarn, yes, it
Yes.
could possibly be.
Oh, I suppose, okay, I follow what you're saying now, is that they're going back to Lanzarote, which
film.
doesn't necessarily mean that it's Sarn. It could be
A different
location within the
From
show
a
universe.
previous...
I see.
Yes.
It'd be Gallifrey for all we know.
Yeah, well, I'm betting that Turlo's going to come back. He's taken over as leader of the Sarns.
That's why they haven't announced any casting for that one yet.
Yep.
Actually, it'd be really cool. If they did
That would be.
And, well, because we never got the end of his story.
It's true.
Raise your hand if you're dying to know what happened.
But speaking of casting, somebody else has been cast. Hermione Norris is going to be in an episode coming up.
Is she playing a nun or a nurse?
She plays a nurse or a nun
That's what
on
the picture,
Called the Midwife.
That's what the picture was from.
Yes.
Okay.
Apparently, I don't know about you guys. I'd never heard of her.
Sure she doesn't play a midwife?
Well, she might. No, I'm pretty sure she... Well, having not watched Called the Midwife, I don't know. I don't know what the difference is. she's very excited about doing it, and especially since her kids will watch it. Moffat said it's a testament to the quality of the writer Peter Harness's intense and emotional script that we've been able to attract the actress, the brilliance of Hermione Norris. And she's had quite the long career in television. A lot of things I've recognized but not seen, including MI5 and Crimson Field, Outcasts, which is in my Netflix queue.
Is that a series?
Mm-hmm. It's a sci-fi series, actually.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that.
Berkeley Square. Yeah, lots of good stuff. No word on who she's playing or anything like that. So we will find out later. And then our last bit of Series 8 news is they've gotten a new director. She's directing 2 episodes, and it's Rachel Talalay. She'll be directing 2 for the upcoming season. She has directed films like Tank Girl and Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, as well as episodes of Haven, The Dead Zone, Kyle XY, Supernatural, and Continuum, time travel show. So it's kind of a big deal because she's also American. So we're getting an American directing an episode of Doctor Who, and it's the first female director we've had since Amy's Choice in 2010.
That means there's hope for me.
Oh, yeah, there
I
you go.
can hear it now, all the people complaining about how the episode was too Americanized.
It was too American.
Hopefully, I know there's been a lot of outcry about not as much female involvement in recent years, so hopefully they'll focus on that instead of her being American.
It's a step in the right direction.
It is, absolutely.
Speaking of Americanized, did you guys see that they picked up Karen Gillan's sitcom?
Yeah.
It's going to series.
Did you watch the trailer for it?
I didn't watch the trailer for it. I don't know. It's got Amy and Sulu in it. I have to be at least a little excited.
George Takei in it?
No. John Cho.
Oh, John Cho.
Who's in apparently every single TV show ever.
Yeah. Unfortunately, if you cast him, then the show
doomed.
fails. Yeah.
Well, no, Sleepy Hollow's going still.
Was he in that?
He was in the pilot. I actually continued through that season despite dying.
Thanks.
Spoilers. He dies in like the first episode. It's not a big deal.
You can't count that then. It's not like he curses it. If he's in a show for a long period of time, he curses it.
Well, he's still returned throughout the series.
Oh, I see. I guess you
In the
can
first
in
season.
that kind of...
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird hearing her with an American accent, too.
She pull it off all right?
It's hard telling.
It's hard to tell.
She never got long enough lines in the trailer to really tell. And, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
Is it Southern or from the Bronx?
No.
Well, then, we'll see.
Next up in news, Doctor Who in Wings. You've probably seen this. This was announced today that Fathom Events is doing another Doctor Who event. But this time, because David Tennant narrated the BBC World, or what is it, BBC Earth? Wings 3D, a thing about geese.
Wait,
I think it's about geese. It's in the picture.
way to forge the forward there, Keith. Whatever it is, it's about geese, and he narrated it.
It's just
recently
ducks.
recently recut for cinemas from the BBC PBS Natural History series Earthflight. Wings 3D, presented in real 3D, will put you in high in the sky in the middle of flocks of birds as they soar above the most iconic landscapes and witness the greatest animal spectacles on Earth. So it's not just geese. But they're gonna, it's gonna be
So it could be a flock of seagulls, too.
It's going to be
And I ran so far away.
Oh, that's totally the theme of Doctor Who right there.
well, it's a 2-night event, June 16th
How did I never notice that?
and 17th.
Let's keep plowing ahead, Keith.
I'm just going to keep going. I haven't been able to find the list of cities that they're doing this in. Oh, I guess we should get to the Doctor Who thing. Doctor Who, Rise of the Cybermen, and Age of Steel on the big screen.
Because that's really the only thing that ties us in.
Yeah.
I understand that David Tennant is narrating that silly thing. But
from what I can tell, it's a double screening of those 2 episodes and then Wings 3D. And they have it on... I can't find a list of what cities they're going to be doing it. Tickets supposedly go on sale sometime today.
What good are you?
It's not my fault Fathom won't release these things.
Don't try too hard. Just keep moving.
And they're going to... it looks like they're going to update their theater list until the event dates. So if your city isn't on the list and you want to go, check back and maybe it'll be there.
I have a feeling what they do is they sort of gauge the popularity.
Well, considering the popularity of the 50th...
Something like this, they're certainly going to see how many tickets they sell right after they go on sale, and if they realize that the popularity is there, they're going to expand in the cities.
It makes me curious of why they chose those 2 stories.
Yeah,
I guess it's a.
I think it's all the birds in those 2 stories.
It's, I guess. Well, I mean, if you're going to do a David Tennant story, you might as well do a Rose one too. And 2-parters, aside from the season finale, this is the only one that can do it. And you might as well make a 2-parter to make it worthwhile to see it in the theater.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think they wanted to do something that was 2-parters, but as a standalone. You know, it doesn't have to be the series finale or something everybody could kind of sort of get on board and enjoy. They're not horrible stories at all by any.
I enjoy them just because Cybermen are there.
I just don't know that I would care to go see that, and that there's other stories that I would rather see on the big screen that I probably would pay money to go see something that I already own on DVD in a movie theater. But
there also isn't a ticket price yet,
yeah.
So that would gauge a lot of if I would be interested, depending on the price of what this is.
Yeah, I don't know. If you're into birds and Doctor Who, flock to your movie theater today.
Flock to your movie theater. And you think I tried too hard.
All right. Next.
It's the best I could do with this news we brought this week.
L.I. Who has some new guest announcements.
Now we got some news we can talk about.
I can talk about birds.
You didn't say much.
Would you like me to regurgitate some pasta salad for you?
Nicola Bryant is making a rare East Coast appearance.
She is a hot bird.
Also joining them is Dick Mills.
Does it really say a rare East Coast appearance?
Yes.
It doesn't like there's been any opportunities for her to appear.
That's
on the
why
East
it's
Coast.
rare, Glenn.
Yes, so.
The last time she made an East Coast appearance was probably Florida Con with John Nathan Turner in 1986.
Spin it any way you can.
They've been saying that about all the guests making rare East
Coast appearances. Well, it's true because there hasn't been any opportunities out there. It's all been West Coast and Midwest, so I suppose they have every right to say that.
Also joining is Dick Mills, special effects sound guy from the Classic Doctors.
Who was at Gallifrey a few years ago. And I listened to him, and he was actually rather interesting. Went in to get off my feet, found myself enjoying the conversation.
I think I remember listening to the Radio Free Scaro interview with him when I was really fascinated. And the guest of honor this year, we have Mr. Terrence Dix.
Terrence Dix. That's exciting. That's very exciting. Now that Wendy's there and Terrence is there, I still probably won't go, but I'm actually getting quite jealous now.
Oh, there was a bit we forgot to mention. A bit of sad news.
Oh, no.
Paul Spragg with Big Finish passed away, unfortunately.
Did they ever say what happened? He just had a seizure. He was been ill, and then he had a seizure. No, he wasn't feeling well. He was supposed to go in for an appointment. They said that paramedic. He called because he was out of breath and wasn't going to be able to make it on his own. So paramedics came to take him. When they got there, they found out he had had a seizure or something, and they actually spent an hour trying to revive him at his home, and then they got him to the hospital and
2 hours at home.
2 hours at home, and then tried another hour at the hospital. Is that right?
Another half hour.
Half hour, and then I mean it's weird, but I never saw what he actually had been suffering from.
I don't think it's come out. This article doesn't say it.
I think that was his partner, they said, that released that information to
yes.
coworkers.
Natalie Hayden issued a statement on Facebook.
That's right.
So that's some sad news.
Yeah, it is sad. You look at his resume with Big Finish, he's kind of one of those guys that's done a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, he was a producer, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he did like his list. They listed like
editor
music,
of Vortex magazine recently.
Well, and that was his big thing. Recently he was promoted to editor of Vortex magazine, and he was mostly in charge of that. But it sounds like he had a hand in a lot of things there up until that point.
Some not so sad news. Doctor Who Legacy updates.
Yes.
What are those, Glenn?
Well, as far as I can tell, right now they have added to the perk system. It's my understanding that the S-Perks system is now available if you have enough stars from unlocking and leveling up characters. I apparently am not at 180 yet, so I don't know. I can't get in there. However, they do have one new perk in the perk 1 level that you can try out. Well, you didn't try out, it's yours. But you can open that now, unlock it, and it allows you to do to get bonuses based on gem combinations. So the 3 options with that particular one is if you can choose 5% damage bonus for a T formation. You can do 5% bonus damage for a cross setup or for 5 across. So you get to choose on that. So that's all I know. I haven't got to look at it much other than that.
Looks like another update is the Miranda Cleaves Ganger that we got
she
the
is
code
now,
for.
She is now added to.
She is in Season 5, Level 20, and also available in the store and the Season 5 roll machine. And right now, Season 5 TV episodes are bonus XP.
Yes.
For this week.
So if you're playing TV episodes, you're getting 1.5 times experience.
Next week it will go to the fan area, I believe.
Yes, that is correct.
Is it just weekend or is it all week?
It's all week.
All week.
For the last 3 weeks, they've been doing.
They've been moving
each.
7,
Yeah,
6.
they started with
5.
7, then they went to 6 last week, and now 5. Yes.
Oh, that's nice that it tells you new.
Yeah, it does that on whenever you get anything added. It's been real good about that. All right, was that it for news?
That's it for news.
All right. Well, since you did all the news talking, we should have Sean read the first bit of feedback. Actually, our only bit of feedback, according to Keith. So,
if there's other feedback and I missed it, I'm very sorry, but
sorry.
I did not see it.
He did look, I promise.
We even gave you extra time to get it all in.
Yeah. It's okay. We rambled a bit this week, so it'll be nice to...
Well, feedback this week comes from Chrissy, who writes a certain kind of intelligence. I'm not sure I like your tone, Chrissy. Dear Vortex Boys, so the archive on the Great Intelligence. The Great Intelligence is awesome. No, really. I like that of all the villains from Classic Who they could bring back in the 50th anniversary year, we got one that was sort of, kind of, hard to imagine as something concrete. I mean, we all know what a Dalek and a Cyberman look like, but how do you personify something that calls itself an intelligence? The answer? Any way you want to. Which, if you think about it, makes it the perfect candidate for an appearance in New Who. You can update it without retconning a whole lot. Plus, it makes it perfect for someone like Stephen Moffat to bring back, especially with his aptitude for making ordinary things scary. It's not that he made the Wi-Fi itself scary in The Bells of St. John. is that he thought the great intelligence could take over something from our modern world. Why limit the intelligence to inhibiting simple Yeti robots? That's the brilliance of the great intelligence. The eunuchs. We're going to have to tell that story. That's the brilliance of the great intelligence. It can be anything or anyone. There's really no way of destroying it completely, which makes it a formidable enemy, if a little cerebral for general audiences to comprehend. Probably a good thing to cycle it out with other things. I really don't have much more to add. The Bells of St. John is one of my favorite companion introduction stories, and the name of the Doctor is frankly brilliant. Didn't get to downtime, though. Maybe sometime this summer when all my shows are in the off-season. Well, that's all I have to say this week. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. I hope everyone had a fun day with their moms and other mother figures in their lives. Chrissy.
Thank you, Chrissy.
And a happy Mother's Day, which passed now. That would have been a brilliant thing for her to have read out that if I hadn't had to postpone everything. So
that happened last week too, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Last 2 weeks are rough, man.
It was Easter. No, it was Easter. It wasn't last week. It was Easter.
It was Easter.
We ended up recording late.
Really? I thought it was 2 weeks in a row now.
Well,
no, we did record 2 weeks in a row, but it was.
I think it's been 3 weeks now, hasn't it? That we've been delayed. No, we were back on track, and then we went 2 weeks delayed.
But it was Easter that we were delayed.
That was our first one. That was my fault because Mason was sick.
Yes.
Aha!
I suppose you can blame my 6-year-old son. Now, don't you feel guilty?
I'm not going to blame you.
Well, let's start with our reviews.
Yay!
Time! The Brigadier and Sarah Jane investigate a New World University, a sinister school run by none other than Victoria Waterfield, and a gateway to Earth by the great intelligence which has taken her over.
Dun, dun, dun!
And I'm giving it a bigger dun 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 because I did manage to read both the novel and watch the show again. So
I have to say, watching this, I really enjoyed it.
What? Yes, you did.
I did.
Oh my God, Sean, give me your quick review. Wait, yes, you like it
mostly, yeah.
Oh, good. I was afraid you guys would come here and just tear it up. Because to be quite honest with you,
really, this
if I drill down to it, my whole sheer enjoyment of this is just the really kind of the fan wang that this produces. Ultimately,
maybe that's why I like it.
Everything that's in it is just a joy from a Doctor Who fan perspective. If you were to set somebody down that wasn't a fan of this series and had them watch this, they would just tear it apart. And with the quality and the writing,
and they probably would not enjoy Doctor Who after the fact.
Oh, yeah.
It is very.
I think you also have to have the background on the great intelligence to also be able to enjoy this.
That's what I say. The whole thing is fan service.
You got to have a lot of things lined up to be able to enjoy
this. Whole thing is fan service. You have to have been steeped in some history of Doctor Who in order to enjoy any part of this.
Especially considering 2 of the stories are missing.
Yeah, exactly.
Or were missing when this was made.
Were at the time that this came out. Because if you look at it, it's very disjointed. It's got a very thin thread of narrative in it. It's not very clear on a lot of the things that are happening and the motives.
I didn't feel very confused while watching.
Well, I don't think it's confusing. I just think it leaves a lot empty. It leaves a lot of questions.
It's sporadic.
Sporadic. So there you go. Sporadic's a better word. Maybe not. Yeah, sporadic is good. It's a very sporadic. And I mean, it makes sense from beginning to end, I think, but then there are things within it that don't make sense, that maybe seem a little forced sometimes.
It's as if you were to put a roadmap up on the wall and then load a bunch of ideas into a shotgun and fire and just let the buckshot go all over the map and go, all right, now draw a line from this point to this one, as long as they're on opposite sides of the map, and you'll get there eventually. There's, I mean, yes, the fan wank is totally the reason why this exists. And you know, Mel asked me, she said, so how was it? Because I watched it without her. And I said, quite honestly, I said, it's impressive from a short fan film standpoint that you got Nicholas Courtney, that you got Elizabeth Sladen, that you got Jack and
Deborah
Victoria
Watling.
Waterfield.
Jack and
She
Deborah
got
Watling.
Jack Watling and Deborah Watling. And John Leeson.
And Jeffrey Beavers.
And, just the fact that you were able to do that alone would have given me giggle squee fits to the whole thing.
I was still even impressed by the effects. I didn't think they were too shoddy.
even the effects for what they were fine. And they didn't change anything that didn't need to be changed. The rolling ball, which I still think is the coolest effect in
And they
Web
still
of
had
Fear.
the sound effects, too,
Yeah,
to go with it.
the exact same
Beep,
thing.
as it roll, and it looks the same. You get all that kind of stuff, and it's fine. It's are there problems? Yes, there are some pretty huge ones. As a matter of fact, it's very disjointed. There's a lot of different segment ideas. It's like, okay, we're going to open in a monastery, and it's creepy, and it's a very Doctor Who open. And then John Leeson shows up in his Elton John from Road El Dorado get up, and it's like, what are you wearing? That's not what a Tibetan monk. Okay, never mind. I'm going to let it go.
Was that John Leeson playing?
That was John Leeson
I
playing.
didn't realize
I'm pretty
that.
sure it was John, because he was also the DJ.
Yeah, he was
I
definitely
knew
the
he was
DJ. I didn't realize he was
Either
playing
way,
the
I think he was woefully underused. It's like,
Well.
you let him play like 10 roles. I don't care. put him on a mustache and let him be passerby in the Park 7.
Was the monk supposed to be the Lama? Was he credited as that?
Sure,
Likely,
why not? I don't
yeah.
know.
Then it wasn't James.
Wasn't John-
Okay,
Really?
I
I thought for
think
sure it was John
Oh,
Leeson.
Christopher Barry directed. Speaking of calling back to other Doctor Who alums.
But it's got this very Doctor Who open, and then we kind of flash forward 15 years, and the Brigadier's lost in a astral plane, which was random. And then we go to a New Age college, which is also a very Doctor Who. Felt like, what's the one on Pluto? Sunmakers. Had that kind of industrial overhead complex and a bunch of people running about doing nothing, and it's like, oh, okay. I mean, they had the feel down. It's definitely a Doctor Who made by Doctor Who fans. You got that kind of feel of it. And then Sarah Jane shows up, and she's embroiled in something, and it's like, when's all this going to tie together?
The unfortunate bit of
it
this
takes
is
a long
that
time
takes
to
a
tie
long time
together.
to tie it all together.
and that Sarah Jane kind of drops off through most of the story too.
Yeah.
I think she could have been utilized a little bit better in the story.
Interestingly enough, I thought she'd be used more in the book, and her parts are expounded on, but she's really not in the novel any more than she is in the story. So it makes me wonder if that's just really what Mark Platt
There for
had.
the cameo. And
Yeah. Now, it's fleshed out a little better as what she's doing and what her early on, and why it's important for her to be there. I mean, obviously she's a journalist, and she's giving information to New World because they're basically paying her to give information about the things that she's gathered on these people that they were looking for. And then ultimately, when she finds out who she's gathering information on, she tells him, no, I don't have anything on, because she's not going to give up the information on Lethbridge Stewart on the brig. So it's fleshed out a little more in the book, but as far as the parts go and where they're placed throughout the story in the book, it's the same. Now, granted, he did write the novelization after he wrote the screenplay, but and the screenplay, or the show, the film, I guess I should say. I keep wanting to say movie. It's not really a movie, but the film itself, probably it could have been written in the sense that she was only available at certain times, and so that's why there's some limited availability of her in it as well. So, because I'm sure these guys did this film for little to nothing as far as pay goes. But to come back and replay these parts was fantastic.
Well, and it's fun to eat. This is, I think, one of the problems with the disjointed nature of it is that each of these individual segments works on its own, and each of them feels like a different era of Doctor Who. The bit with Kate on the boat and the coolies, whatever they were called,
Chilies,
that felt very Seventh Doctor era. It just felt like a plot line that at any moment Sylvester McCoy could have shown up and been involved in this story, and Ace was going to come out from around the corner and instigate a fight with these guys or something. But then the Sarah Jane segments felt very Fourth Doctor-ish. That was something that, was going on in that era, despite the fact that, she's a little bit older and everything. It still felt like this is it. And then the Brig shows up, and it's like, oh, it's Old Brig from Sarah Jane Adventures.
But it's not.
But it's not.
Well, it's more old Brig from Battlefield.
But it's not. When this takes place? It actually takes place between...
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
What was the one that he was in with the Fifth Doctor?
Modwin Undead.
Yes. It takes place between Modwin Undead and Battlefield.
Because the kid mentions him at the...
Well, he is still living... The house that he lives in, that is on the school grounds of... What was Bremen? The school?
Oh, I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, he was still teaching there. In fact... That was the secretary that called the last phone call that he wakes up hearing is the secretary from the school asking why he missed the planning for his retirement party. For his retirement party. He's about to retire. And, so that's where...
Was that in the novel or was that in the actual movie?
It's hard for me to separate the two, but I'm pretty sure it was... She says that specifically on the thing. And when he answers the phone at one point, he answers it... Brenham School something.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So,
I didn't pick up on that, but I picked up on the student being a former student of his. Right. So obviously that kind
of... It was obviously post that.
And he's not yet with, I can't remember the wife's name in Battlefield. He's not yet with her. He is still between Kate's mom and this lady. Barbara. Carol? No. Anyway, he still hasn't met her and hasn't started his second marriage with her yet. So the gal that the wife that's in Battlefield, Battlefield is not Kate's mom. That's the second wife.
Right.
Yeah. So, and obviously
Doris.
Doris is the one in Battlefield. Yeah.
What I was really impressed by with this story is the realization of the intelligence, actually. Unlike what came before, and I think this actually benefits Bells of St. John, the exploration of it being on this astral plane and all of that stuff really expounds on the intelligence and helps give you a better grasp of what the intelligence is. And helps lend to the idea of what's happening later in Bells of St. John, and then even somewhat in Name of the Doctor and what came before of how this being exists. And it's so well... I don't know if it's well realized, but it's well explained.
Well, the thing is, I think we finally get a visualization of something that's only been really dropped in name, has been dropped in name in Abominable Snowmen and The Web of Fear, let alone the Snowmen, which is written after this.
But more so for Snowmen and all the new series. The previous ones almost comes across as it's an entity hijacking a body.
Yeah.
More than being this existence elsewhere, like Downtime gives it. And the Snowmen and all the new series gives it this experience. It's this entity elsewhere and living elsewhere instead of literally inside a body. Where the classic Who, it always felt to me in the classic Who that it's like almost more. It could be an alien parasite controlling a
just
puppet.
because of the mental mind control aspects.
I never.
Well, yeah, because they don't give us an example of what the intelligence could be like. It's always behind somebody's face. That it's like...
Yeah, I disagree.
It's almost like it could be like... I want to use an example from Supernatural, because like the demons are these smoke that take on a human form.
But I didn't get that at all from the first two. So they've always made it clear that it's this being that exists and uses material things as kind of the portal between the real world and the astral plane. And I think they've always made that clear to me. And that his existence is kind of omnipresent, but is not omnipotent. And so he has to use vehicles, because even in Abominable Snowman, he was manifesting himself and making his orders in Padma Bambava. But he was also able to take control of Vicky at the same time. He was also got the impression that he needed the power source that was in the cave, because he was essentially using that as a connecting point to reality. So I mean, it was almost like he was always present, but he had to use certain vehicles in order to. I mean, same thing with Web of Fear. He was never really in one person the whole time. He was in several people because he used Arnold, he used Travers, he used. Well, I think that was it in that one. But he was also existed in the pyramid, in the sense that that's where the Doctor was going to go in so that he could basically take his mind. So I never got the impression. I don't think the astral plane part of it is visually realized as well as it is in Downtime.
I don't think it's as well explained in the previous stories.
In the previous stories,
because
I think we really only got one
line.
line.
You mentioned the astral plane, and I didn't quite understand what you meant, having just seen those until watching Downtime.
Yeah. See, Web of Fear uses astral plane a lot less, but.
See, maybe that's my problem then, because I still haven't watched
Snowman certainly mentions it a few times.
Web of Fear, we only get the one drop line about something in space, and that was kind of it. I never heard anything about astral plane, but if it's from Snowman,
well, it's certainly mentioned because when the Doctor's relaying to, I think it wasn't even the Brigadier yet, it was the other guy that was in charge early on when he was trying to explain. No, he was trying to explain it to Ann Travers, I believe it was, when they were discussing what it was, and he talks about it falling to Earth and or something drove it to Earth, and and its existence is on the astral plane, and he essentially lays it out that way. So,
see, I guess I still didn't pick up astral plane. I agree with Keith on that aspect of it, that I think it was better realized.
But the astral, no, I think it is.
It is better realized.
Better realized.
It's still confusing.
But I never got the impression
when we open with the Brigadier on it. It's like. That was the other thing, is I think some of the editing on this suffered a little bit from the way it was broken up into all these different stories, as if to say, hey, look, we got the Brig. Hey, look, we got Sarah Jane. Hey, look, we got this. I almost would have rather had a longer chunk of the Brigadier stuff all at once leading up to him waking up. Then go to Sarah Jane, and a longer chunk of her stuff leading up to this, and then go over here. Yeah. And just as opposed to the quick bit here, which put all the pieces on the board, but gave me no idea what game we were playing. Right. Again, nitpicky.
No, those are certainly valid points, which is, again, why I've watched this twice. I watched it back several months ago after The Snowman, when I went back and I decided to do everything up until Bells of St. John that existed with the Great Intelligence, just so I could catch up and kind of fill everything out. And I watched it then, and I was very intrigued by it. In fact, it was more of a, not necessarily I liked it, it was more of a just, I had this fascination with it, that they had utilized and so well connected it to the previous stories. They had done such a good job of connecting that, but I was always kind of just, even after the first time watching it, I was still quite a bit confused with what was going on. I was genuinely confused. And then it wasn't until this time that I watched it again that I thought, I really do enjoy this. And the majority of it is because of the fan service that it pays. But, I like the connecting factors, that this really feels like the third part of a trilogy.
It really does.
Yeah.
It really does. And so, and it just continues to, because, the first time it's 1930s Tibet, the second time it's 1960s London, and the fourth time it's 1990s. Well, it's probably not 1990s, but
it's supposed to be 25 years later.
Yeah, ish. But there's about 20 to 30 years in between each one, which I thought was cool. And so I watched it this time, and I really was. I thought, I'm not going to read the novel. I don't have time to do that. And it wasn't until I sit down and watched this Friday that I thought, what? I'll just start reading the novel to see what it does. And my first thing was, as I went to the end of the novel to see kind of where they went from the point that it ends, because it always felt like it kind of abruptly just ends. It's one of those, everybody walks off, the Brig goes off with his grandson, and Sarah and Kate go off to have tea or a pint or whatever they finally decided on. But it always seemed a little abrupt to me, so I thought, surely that's not how the book ends. And sure enough, there's basically an epilogue on it, because my biggest dissatisfaction is the fact that I don't know what happens to Victoria after.
Completely dropped.
And so I went and I read the kind of the epilogue. I think it's the last chapter, but it would be the epilogue to the story, and was just I fell in love with the novel just from the end, because I went, wow. Because in the novel, do you want to know?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go back and read it?
Well, I'm going to go back and read it anyway.
I'll probably.
It's a little bit of bookend, but maybe there's a little spoiler here for me. At the end of the novel, we flash forward to Victoria, who is been sort of on the run or hiding not necessarily. There's not a lot of time that elapsed that they don't give the impression, but she has been visited once by the Fourth Doctor. Now, we don't get that visitation, but she makes the allusion to it as she's talking to a gentleman in a gallery where she's looking at photographs that were taken of her when she was little in the 1800s. They weren't really photographs. They're, what do they call them, tin plate tintographs or whatever they called them back then.
Right.
She was part of a photo session in her childhood when she was 6, and the photographer was Lewis Carroll, and I can't remember his real name, but she refers to him as her real name. So she's looking at these pictures that are on display in this Lewis Carroll gallery now, and this guy shows up in a rather flamboyant coat and blonde grayish hair, and it's the Third Doctor, and he's basically there checking up on her, and she doesn't equate the fact that he's the Doctor, but she knows. She said that another guy that visited me had curly hair and a rather eccentric scarf. Also said that he was the Doctor, and so she's assumed that her Doctor, the Second Doctor, has sent both of these gentlemen. And essentially, it's the Third Doctor checking up on Victoria to see how things have gone, how she is, and at the end, she's remorseful for what she did. She realizes she made a mistake, but she says, I really should turn myself in. And the Doctor essentially gives her a note, basically saying, "Go easy on her," and that she didn't really have control over what she was doing, and kind of gives her a way of turning herself in, but not being punished too severely for what she did, just basically by signing this note for her as scientific advisor for UNIT. So, and she goes and turns herself into UNIT. So, it was a nice resolution to the story for me. So I was blown away by that. I thought that was really cool that the Third Doctor shows up in this, and rightfully fortunately Mark Platt got a chance to use the Doctor, because then when I did that, I went, okay, maybe I do want to read this. So I went back to the beginning and started from the beginning, and as I'm reading, there's a point where they start off right at the end of Web of Fear as they're leaving. So the Second Doctor and Jamie have a small piece in this book as well. And so I say that it's in flashback because she's kind of the first, honest to God, 50 or 60 pages of the book is Victoria from I don't know if you know anything about Victoria, but she was actually left. What happened was, in Evil of the Daleks, her father was kidnapped, or she was rather taken hostage by the Daleks. The Daleks ended up killing her father on Skaro. And she was only 14 at the time. I didn't realize that she's supposed to be 14 in the series, 14, 15, around there. Because her father died, her mother had died when she was young, she had no family, she was stranded on Skaro, and so the Doctor and Jamie essentially took her, and that's why she ended up on the adventures with them. Mm-hmm. And so it actually goes a long way to explain the fact that you kept saying she's sort of underused. We were saying she was kind of strong in those episodes finally, but based on what we had before, she's always been kind of that character that was supposed to be the damsel in distress. She was supposed to be what Susan were trying to do with Susan in the beginning, and that's why she left. That was the idea of what they were doing, was they were kind of surrogate parents to her. And so they were always trying to protect her, and that's why she's always sort of sidelined, or she's screaming or scared or taken prisoner or whatever, because that was her role in the show. That was the character's role. So, anyway, she was then left at the end of Underwater Menace, I believe it is where she leaves the show, and she was left with a gentleman and a lady in the 1960s, I believe, at that point. And they basically became foster parents to her, and she stayed on Earth, and that's where her story ended.
Is that the dad that she's referring to in
No,
Downtime?
She's referring to her actual father, who was killed in Skaro. In fact, she makes mention in there, when she's talking to Travers, she says he was killed on another world, millions of miles away from here.
Yeah.
She makes that reference. But the I don't want to go into too much of this and bore you guys, but the first 60 or 70, really 50, 60 or 70 pages of this is Victoria from somebody comes to her with a will, because they're trying to track down, because her father, I think it was Edward Waterfield, I think, or
sure.
I can't remember. Her father, anyway, very wealthy man. In fact, he was a scientist, and that's what ended up getting them transferred to Scarborough because he was doing experiments with a mirror, and they, anyway.
We already made that movie.
He was rich. They were high class Victorian era family. And so years later, a guy comes to him and he's tracked Victoria, and because Waterfield's such a rare name, she must be related in some way, and so that's how she ends up getting the money in order to start this New World. But she goes to Tibet, and then there's a whole lead up to her leaving and going to Tibet and finding a guide, and then ending up with this blind monk, and this other guy and another adventurer guy gets her the guide, they take her to Tibet. When she gets there, there's the blind monk that's been traveling with him that hasn't said a thing. Gets there, and then he starts to warn her, and that's where we pick up in the show.
Okay.
And he's warning her, don't do this.
Don't disturb it.
It's revealed to us in the book that monk is Tomlin from the Abominable Snowman. That's who that is. He's now the abbot of the monastery. And they're blind. All of the monks are blind. And I don't think I really picked up on why, but it was almost a discipline that they did. And part of it was because of this entrapment, because the Great Intelligence was still trying to get through, but it was trapped. Whatever the Doctor had done to send it back to the astral plane, it was trapped, and somehow it got lured Travers to Tibet. Travers got caught up in it, or that's not true because they said he was dead later. Anyway, so that's where that starts and picks up there. But there was a whole lot of exposition and lead up, and it actually makes you sort of feel a little more understanding as to why Victoria did this, because she's continuing to hear. They also talk about how she starts to learn how to do astral projection, which kind of gets a little wonky there. But then also, if the Great Intelligence exists on the astral plane, it makes sense that that's a place you could physically travel to. So she's been having astral projections. She's duped into believing that it's her father that's trapped there, and she starts to believe that, and so that's why she does that. In the process, they also kind of reiterate the idea that whatever this is, she doesn't recognize it as the Great Intelligence. She recognizes it as some sort of spiritual force that's going to deliver the great truth to the earth, and the light of truth, I think is what it's called. And so that's why she uses the money that her father left her to set up this university in order to do this. So she's really been coerced this whole time, and
Sure.
she's a victim of this, which I think that the film does a good job, a decent job of conveying that, but the book does a much better
sounds
job
like it.
Of conveying.
See, I never thought that she was a true villain in this piece.
Yeah.
I got the sense that she was either A, under control,
Yes,
or B,
which I think that's
duped.
mostly what she is. But I think it's a little bit of both.
I also, again, you have to come down just a little bit on you went to this monastery in Tibet where you encountered this thing, and now you believe that your father is trying to come back through the astral plane in the same place.
Where you were before, yeah.
And maybe it's just one of those things of,
Coincidence.
you see what you want to see.
Right,
and
right.
had there been a Jamie along on the adventure, he would have said, "Do you not see the correlation between this and that? You can't be serious. It's the bad guy."
Well, and I can't remember for sure, but because of the
having
fact
been
that,
left alone for so
because of the
long.
fact that she was so young, and this was 25 years later, and I think also, she was called out from there, but she doesn't necessarily. I don't think she really kind of understood what really the Great Intelligence was and what had happened at even the London event, as they continue to call it they called it in the movie too, but in the book it's the London event.
The London event.
And at one point they say the Tibet event as well, and then this one will be known as the Second London event, I think is what they call it.
It's interesting that, I don't know, Victoria winds up becoming, in my mind, a very tragic figure. Because,
in a way, she's the precursor to Kislet. Yeah.
Well, I'll get into that in a minute. But just from a companion standpoint, so, very first adventure, your dad's dead. You get picked up with the Doctor, you kind of get shanghaied into all these adventures with him, and then you get, not left, but you were left to, here's a home for you. Okay, fine. Admittedly, it's how many years down the road. So
just the transition to
Yeah.
that is going to be
huge fish out of water thing. But she never gets over the fact that her dad's gone. Now she goes through this whole thing, getting to the monastery and getting money and getting all this stuff so that she can set up the astral projection thing to get to her dad back. And none of that winds up happening. In fact, it turns out having a complete bad effect that she's once again opened the door for the great intelligence and he comes through. So then she spends however many years on the run, only to be given a note at the end where, yeah, you should probably turn yourself in, and here's a get out of jail free
I get
card.
the original was only a few weeks.
Well, okay.
So she wasn't running for a long time. She wasn't sure quite what to do, and she knew that she needed to turn herself in. She just wasn't quite ready to do that yet.
And the doctor, I mean, I like the fact the doctor's checking up on her and making sure that everything's okay, but then the fact that he gives her a get out of jail free card, and yeah, you should go turn yourself in, almost like, it's kind of a downer to that story. I mean, she's had a hard run of it the whole time. So,
well, I don't know. I mean, it makes sense. I think the doctor's the one that realized that, you kind of got yourself into a mess, but it was more inadvertent, so it could be worse for you. I'm going to make it easier for you because I have an affection for you, and basically I was a surrogate father to you for some time. So, yeah, I don't know. It totally makes sense to me.
And I love the fact that they... It was kind of lurking in the back of my head through the whole thing that we have Sarah Jane and Victoria in this same story, and then Pyramids Mars, when Sarah Jane shows up wearing that dress, and suddenly it hit me. It was like, oh, that's got to be a little creepy weird for the two actresses to know, I wore your costume once, How do you have that discussion? And then they worked the story in at the end when she's telling the brig, and then he said this, and it was like, ooh.
Well, and I like how Sarah didn't really equate that it was that it was this Victoria that she thought, because she makes the comment about how she thought, well, at least it wasn't Edwards. Well, she was thinking like Queen Victoria or whoever, it was her previous dress, but it actually was Victoria's.
It actually was Victoria's.
So that was neat. Also, one of the other callbacks to, I think it was Pyramids Mars, that drove me nuts.
The gun.
And I think she just said it. I think she just offhandedly said it because she didn't want to. But when she says, I'm a terrible shot, my thought was, no, you're not.
The alarm bell went off. What are you talking about? I'm going to chalk it up to the fact that Sarah didn't want to use the gun.
Yes, I think that's what it was.
All I'm going to leave it.
She was. If Kate could use the gun, then Kate could go ahead and use the gun.
She was going to, and Kate with a gun. Isn't that an odd little, aha, you hypocrite, you. Daddy wore off on you.
But I think that was good because there's also that exploration of the fact that the Brigadier had to keep his life such a secret that he basically alienated his daughter so much that she hates him now. She doesn't like him. She doesn't want him to have anything to do with her life. And to make it even worse, is she believes that was the same reason her mother left him.
Yeah.
Is because of the fact that he had all of these secrets, and that he would say he was off doing military stuff, but that he couldn't tell them about it. And so she's very jilted by that. And I love the idea that she's so jilted by that she's this kind of peace-loving, pacifist. Well, not as a hippie, but pacifist. And she's trying to raise her son differently. And she gets agitated at him when she finds out he has the gun. But then the gun ends up being used in their kind of... I mean, it doesn't end up working for them, but it ends up, a necessity at that point when they're attacked by the Chili's. And then when the gun is left, her realizing that her father's gone into danger, he's going to need this.
Yeah.
It was this nice little flip-flop back and forth of, just as you said, wow, you having the gun, and then her having the gun, and at a point where she almost needed to use it, and then she ultimately gets it back to him.
Kate is probably the strongest part of this story for me. I really, and I can still reconcile. I can still head retcon this Kate and.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with it.
Future Kate. These are part of this. This is her arc. This is what happened.
Yeah,
and that it's probably because of these events that she wound up going the direction that she did.
And to be quite honest with you, I sincerely believe that Moffat is a fan of this piece.
Well, just looking at the parallels between this
and
Bells of
St. John with the computer systems and everything, and then to introduce Kate later in the series and
the very least
use the name Kate and not throw away this idea. I'll let you know a little secret here. I don't know if you guys know this. This Kate in this series is in another real-time film playing Kate Lethbridge Stewart, called Demons Rising, where they return and her and somebody else have to face off against Azal. So
really?
yeah, so there's another tie-in Doctor Who fame, and it's because of this story that I think she goes on to do that, and then I think because of those events and her ties to what's going on in these is why she proceeds to go on and become not scientific advisor, she's technical director of unit or whatever.
Well, she's not head of, or sorry, she's not in real time though, right? The first one, or Shakedown.
She's not in Shakedown. She's not in Shakedown. But she's in no, okay. Not at all. No, Shakedown's a whole different thing.
Okay,
yeah. It's set in the future, and
it's the same production.
It is the same production.
Right? Okay.
It is real time production. Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't know if it was a trilogy of these things.
No.
Or if it was
and I don't think Demon Rising has a novelization or not. Shakedown and Downtime both do, but I don't think Demons Rising does. Demon Rising, by the way, this was made in 1994. Demons Rising wasn't made until 2004.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I was shocked by that when I
didn't
saw
know that.
Yeah, so 10 years later.
I agree with Keith that this is where this is really kind of weird. That you can look at Abominable Snowmen and Web of Fear and Downtime, and it does form that kind of great intelligence trilogy that it really pairs up nicely because of the events, because we've got Yeti, because we've got this Tibet connection, and the way the intelligence's MO works. But then, because of the fact that it's now inhabiting the computer system and the internet, which is a stroke of genius. That's the best thing about this whole thing is how that was.
Yeah.
And you can totally see Moffat went, aha, and just moved it to the Wi-Fi. It was just, it's the way we access information as opposed to the information.
It takes it to the next level.
Exactly. Yeah. It's upgraded. But if you take even the Snowmen and Bells of St. John and Name of the Doctor, which kind of form a
trilogy of
its own, but Downtime still works as a piece of that.
Well, it's a wonderful bridge.
Because it's this bridge between these two things. It works so well as that piece.
Moffat knew what he was doing. I think he certainly took all of the three things that had come before and built his three things around that and nicely melded everything together.
Yeah.
I think he did a wonderful job of that. Something that the novel does is it makes something that I felt that the film didn't do was make you realize that the effects that were happening, you just really kind of see on the street with the traffic lights being all bugged out. The book really shows you that it's more of a global event, that there's a virus in everybody's computers, that something is going wrong with the internet,
I just
and things are being affected and taken over and shut down. And in fact, Unit basically had to shut down all of their computer systems so nothing else could get in, and we started relying on hard files and hard copies as they did in the 1960s because they couldn't use their computer systems. So it's really more of a global thing going on. And the only other thing that really in the film ties it into the fact that it's a global event is the fact that they use that satellite image when it finally uploads to that satellite in the sky, and then you see the webbing or the energy web kind of start to encircle the globe as well. So that's the only real impression that you're getting that's a global event from the book.
Yay for keeping web as
the theme.
Well, it just we talked about why are Yetis shooting web shooters, and that kind of stuff, but it just, I don't know. It just made sense that, of course, it has to be this big giant web thing that's over. Yeah, all right. It made me happy.
Yeah. I agree.
What did not make me happy? Anybody else get that little twinge when somebody says, Lethbridge Stewart, well, your time with Unit in the 70s, and they never drop the rest. Now, I know that's become a new series thing.
One of those.
But I just, you penned it down.
That still makes it one step from official.
I know.
Yeah, I did that as well.
I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, or the 80s, and they never dropped. I was like, oh, no.
I think the one thing that bothered me watching the movie was that the Yeti were always robots. And now suddenly, the little spheres can roll up and then, boop, you turn into a Yeti.
Yeah.
Which in the novel is realized a little better, because in the novel, the sphere actually drives into their chest, and then the Yeti kind of hulk out the people they don't just like pop and then they're a Yeti. They actually kind of Hulk out, their clothes tear off, and they actually go through a werewolf style transformation. So I'm a little better with it, but it's just they don't really quite explain how the Great Intelligence has now designed the spheres to transform people into Yetis. But I just rolled with it.
And why?
Yeah, well,
because if you are going to design that into a ball, that it's going to use nanites or whatever and go and infiltrate a body and become this gigantic. It grows in my head. It grows robot arms and everything, and you Hulk out. Why Yeti?
I thought it
makes the connection
in London.
Another interesting thing about the novel is at this time there are actually Yetis in captivity. The London Zoo has one. There are 3 different types of Yeti. One is called the Traverse, which is actually named after Travers because he didn't necessarily capture the first Yeti, he was the first one to spot and identify one. Mm-hmm. And the particular Yeti that he did was more bear-like than Yeti, but there's the Yeti, the Traverse, or Traversi, and I don't remember what the name of the other one is. So in this universe, Yeti exists, and they've actually at this point. In fact, there's this wonderful thing where Sarah goes to the exhibition because they're getting ready to the zoo. The London Zoo is getting ready to, I believe, they have Yeti, and they're about to give one of the Yeti to the Chinese, and there's this whole diplomatic event, and the Prime Minister's there, and the Yeti ends up biting her. It was hilarious. Well, I mean, it was just this little small thing, and it was obviously a nod to the whole, the opposition. Obviously, Mark Platt was not a Tory, and did not like Thatcher, but it is Thatcher. I mean, he spells it out that it's Margaret Thatcher and everything, but it was cool. But yeah, that is actually, we kind of speculated last week when we were talking about the existence of Yeti and how they were playing fast and loose with that. Well, he nails it down here that in this particular universe, in this timeline, Yeti do exist, and we actually have a few in captivity. They're peaceful, they're not violent or anything, but so
unless you're the Prime Minister.
He was still going for the Yeti theme.
Okay, you know what? Suddenly that actually makes a little more sense to me now, that it's not still some random robotic mythical creature roaming around the Himalayas. There are real Yeti, and we have them in the zoo. All right.
So
I'll allow
it certainly helps.
And the glowing red eyes.
One thing I did find interesting about this, it almost seemed to help clarify the Yeti figures even more. The fact the locusts, I don't know. For me, it just helped me understand what they were used for. I knew they were used to move the Yeti around, but this added more depth and more explanation to it, I thought.
See, and I didn't quite get that out of the film when I read the novel and realized that when the Doctor was doing what he did at the end of Web of Fear in order to basically dispatch of by using his mind, but what he did is he ended up trapping the intelligence on the astral plane again. And in fact, he's lamenting that at the end because that wasn't part of my plan. I had this whole thing worked out. Well, the idea was that what happened is when he trapped him back on the astral plane, it set up these different keys in different places, and one of them happened to be one of those Yeti statues that
it was
he
a
used.
Horcrux.
Yeah, it was a Horcrux. And so that was the idea, is that they had continued to track down all of these devices that were keeping him trapped, and they found all of them except for this one that the Brigadier had, or obviously given to Kate, and then
that expounds on it, but it makes
so. Yeah. I when I read that, I kind of liked the idea that it's this basically a key to his prison, and this is the last piece of that key that has to be destroyed. So it actually made more sense reading the novel after. But I liked the idea, I liked the imagery, and I liked the fact that the Brigadier, while everything I took out, I put back in or whatever, and he makes that conversation with Cavendish, which. It's another thing that the book does a wonderful job. That was another problem I had with Cavendish, is that story is so minute and small, and Cavendish obviously is just one more person that is working for the Great Intelligence in order to try to find the Lotus.
Yeah.
Locust. Find the locust. But in the book, we were talking about this last week about how the London event probably was the catalyst for. Well, you obviously pointed to the fact that in Invasion the Brig mentioned that, but that the reason why the Brigadier ends up being in charge. There's a nice little piece in the beginning of the book about how the Brigadier is reading a letter from the London government that he had sent a letter saying based on the event that happened here, we should set up a unit that is essentially in charge of investigating and combating these types of things on Earth. And the English government basically sends back a letter saying, well, we don't want to do anything like that. Maybe you should look to the UN. Well, interestingly enough, Cavendish...
Which works for Torchwood, because we already have that, but we're not allowed to talk about it.
Cavendish, who is this RAF sergeant, I think, at the time, has already been putting in place with the UN, and already working with the UN, a way to set up something similar to UNIT within the UN in Geneva, and they would basically administer it. And he's the one that recommends Lethbridge Stewart to head that up. So Cavendish, the guy that he's talking to, is the one that basically is responsible. Now, he doesn't appoint him because he didn't have that power,
right.
But he's responsible for getting the Brigadier, because he gets promoted. That's mentioned in here, is that the Brigadier was promoted shortly after the London event because of his involvement, because of his command. And then he's essentially put in touch with the UN by Cavendish because they're already getting ready to set this.
Now, does the book
unit
specify for sure that Cavendish is under the control of the Great Intelligence?
Well,
because it's weird, because there were elements to it where it seemed like there may have been a friendship there once upon a time. But there certainly is not now.
Well, and here's what happens too. Around about the time Victoria goes to the monastery, suddenly she wakes up in the hospital, and this guy, I can't remember his name, Bryce, I think the adventurer guy, the writer that had put her in touch with the guide that took her up there. He's essentially just kind of this nice guy that I think even Sarah Jane, they connect him to how Sarah Jane knows him, but he was explorer and whatever. She wakes up in the hospital, and he basically pays her hospital bill and sends her home. Shortly after that, Cavendish and this other guy they're on working for the UN now, are flying up, and they're trying to find out what's going on and what has happened here. They're investigating this explosion at this Dinset monastery. And they land the helicopter, and as he gets out to start to explore, these monks kind of line up on there's nothing left. The place is in rubble. The place exploded after she released Travers / Great Intelligence. And so when he's up there, the monks are standing on this thing, and I'm not exactly sure what happens, but something really kind of metaphysical happens, and they start chanting, and they talk about this concussion of wave that comes over them, and they're like scared and they run off. And I get the impression that was the intelligence utilizing the monks at that point to basically influence or take over or start to take over Cavendish. So okay. Cavendish is starting to become possessed at that point by the Great Intelligence as well. So yes, the book does kind of set the groundwork for Cavendish. That's why I say Cavendish, when I saw this, Cavendish was this little, just tiny piece of this whole thing that I thought, why is he even in here? It's almost like there's more of a story there. Well, yes, there is more of a story there. In fact, Cavendish is back at the UN trying to keep, because when Sarah Jane calls in, was it PPQQ?
QQMM.
QQMM?
Or MMQQ.
Oh, MMQQ. And you know what those are? The production codes for Abominable
Snowman. Really?
And, yeah, I read this later. And Web of Theo. Those were the production codes. That's why they used it. More fan service. And so when she calls in MMQQ, that is like serious stuff. And so the current brigadier, and I can't remember his name, starts to, well, should we take this serious? And they're trying to figure out whether you really need to go in there with. And Cavendish actually comes in and tries to, they don't know, but subversively try to
poo-poo the
idea and make sure that they don't go out there and whatnot, because he knows what's going on. So there's a little more to that. Another thing that's really cool, guess who shows up? She's not the brigadier yet, but she's
Bambera, but no.
Bambera, yeah, Bambera, yeah. She's like a first colonel or something like that. She's kind of second in command at unit, and so she's in this too.
That's cool.
And she's there at the battle. And in fact, her and sadly enough, the pilot that had gone with Cavendish and was also affected by whatever happened up there is in the plane. Yeah, it's her pilot, and there's some
red shirt death.
Yeah, red shirt death going on. But her helicopter actually crashes, and I went, well, she can't be dead. And then find out later she actually managed to land it in a pond, so she saved everybody on board. So.
They got promoted.
Just more,
probably because of it.
More things, just in. In the film, but in the book, there's all this fan service.
I can see what happened is that he Mark Platt wrote this. He wrote all of it. He wrote the whole thing, and they turned in the script. And they went, we cannot afford an explosion at a monastery. We cannot afford a helicopter. We cannot afford that. We cannot go to Geneva. And so the whole thing got cut out. And they went.
And so they ghost lighted it.
We can afford this, so we'll shoot this. We can afford going to the university. We'll shoot that.
Sort of what it feels like.
We can afford a houseboat, so we'll film that. And that's it.
What about the pyramid on the top of the university?
Oh, that was
again.
Cool.
We've got the pyramid imagery. We've got the spheres. We've got everything that has come before.
I wondered, had I not gone into this knowing that it was an intelligence archive, I wondered if that immediate, because it's one of the first scenes that boom here. In fact, it's right after her at the monastery that you see that.
No, they show the exterior shot of New World University. And you see the big pyramid on top of it.
And I wondered, would I have automatically cued into the, I bet I know what that is, that he came back into that. And maybe
I don't know, when Travers come out of the tunnel after she released him out of the webs, my first thought was, there's great intelligence.
Well, because you don't know it's Travers at first.
Yeah.
It's just a shape.
Well, because they've got it backlit really well.
But it's frustrating because it's like, I can see
I highly
couldn't afford any of this.
Don't run out and do it now, but I highly recommend at some point you guys read the book. I think you guys would thoroughly enjoy it, especially if you enjoyed the film itself. The book really expounds on it. It really goes a lot further to explain and make sense of a lot of things that are happening to us. But the thing that impressed me the most is every bit of dialogue that I could tell from the movie is in the book. So it wasn't like... Because I had heard that he had kind of changed the plot a little bit. The plot still clips on exactly the same way. The only change that I saw, other than the additions, the only change that I saw is that when it ends, it's nighttime, and he makes a point to understand that it's dark outside afterwards. But that was the only difference.
We couldn't afford nighttime shoots.
It was the only difference that I could tell. That was the fact that it was nighttime when everything finishes up. By the time they get to the courtyard and the Great Intelligence is about to make the final emergence on the world, it's actually dark out, but it's producing so much light from the energy that you can't tell. But then once the energy goes away, it's dark outside. Well, the impression that I get is that the sun has gone down in the meantime, so you didn't realize it had gotten dark until basically the lights go out, and you go, "Oh yeah, it's dark out."
I will say I was impressed with not only the people that they had, but just a really large cast. They had
there was
dozens of
lots of chilies.
And dozens of kids.
Lots of people in traffic
in this high school or college, and I was like, when they all showed up there at the end, and had the little pyramid of balls, and which was we've got spheres and pyramids there, but just it's like, wow, there's a lot of people in this. I mean, it's like, how many of you want to be in my movie? Come here. Put this on. Really? Green hat? Yeah. Trust me. That and the Walkman. You got to put the Walkman.
The headphones.
Yeah, it's frustrating that because it is such a...
You see all the potential that could have been.
There's just so much potential here.
It's all right here.
And it capitalizes on some of it. And I know that most of the reviews... I read a bunch of reviews on this, and most of the people commented about how much they enjoyed it. But all of those reviews dealt with the performances, that giddy fan feeling of there's the brig, there's Sarah Jane, there's this, and if you really drill down to it, that it is such a muddled mess of a plot. But having the book, I think really, I'm totally going to read it because it really sounds like it fleshes things out. And
I'm sad to say I've given a lot of it away, but I think you'll still thoroughly enjoy it.
Just to be able to sit down and piece it all together at once.
I literally watched Friday morning. I watched this show, And it piqued my interest to find out what was in the book, and went to the end. And when I read that, I went, "Oh, this is actually pretty good." And so I thought, "Oh, there's no way I'll read this before Sunday." I was done Sunday morning. I started Friday morning after I watched. I read not most of the day, but off and on Saturday, and then was finished by Sunday morning. And I thought, "Wow, I've never read a book that fast." It's been a long time since I read that long of a book that fast. I think it's 257 pages or something.
Wow.
I mean, it's not a short book, but it's not a long book by any means.
It's not War and Peace.
It's still fast paced.
But yeah, it just gripped me and kept going. Now, it also helps that when I read a book and can already visualize all of the characters and most of the scenes. That was the nice thing is I could see the university, I could see the Tibetan monk, I could see I could see everything that was in it because it was well set up from having seen the visuals already. I just had to put, I obviously had to come up with the guy's name's Bryce, the guy that Victoria meets up with in the beginning. She has this wonderful eccentric landlady that's in there as well. There's the brigadier's secretary or the school secretary. She's wonderful. She shows up at one time to check up on him. It's clear that she's enamored with him and that she likes him because
is her name Doris?
Oh my gosh, that would be awesome. Was it Doris?
While Glenn looks that up.
I don't think it was. I think it was Clarice or something.
Missed opportunity.
Clarice Doris.
Doris is his pet name for her.
Here we go. I'm getting there. Oh, come on. No, it's... Oh.
I wish you could see this at home. Glenn furiously paging through this.
Anyway, move on.
What I think would be interesting is... Now, did you read any of the Target novelizations of episodes that you hadn't seen? Or was it always
when
the
I was
reverse?
a kid, I think the only Target novelization that I read was maybe Attack of the Cybermen. Maybe. I can't remember. It was a Cyberman story. It was the only thing that No, it wasn't Attack because it was one that I had not seen.
Revenge, maybe?
Might have been. It was something something Cyberman that I had never seen the show. But that was the only Target novelization I read as a kid. I've read more of them as an adult since I've seen a lot of them. But
do you remember your impressions after you read that one, going back and watching the episode then
they
and going...
were never as good.
Never.
No, because...
That was my problem with Web of Fear. That's the one that really
see,
sticks out in my mind. That and War Games actually was the same way.
That's just it. You certainly read a lot more. I only read the one, and I remember recognizing... I remember recognizing a lot of it when I finally did see the story, the televised story. But, I just...
Because what I think would be interesting is to kind of do a reverse on this, because there's still plenty that you've not watched, Keith. If we could get a hold of a Target novelization and have you read it, and then get you to watch an episode, and then do the reverse, have you read one of an episode you've already seen.
Well, we kind of did that with Moonbase. Because I had read that.
I guess that's true. I didn't think about that.
So you just need to do the reverse.
Yeah.
I just need to go and read a novelization of one I've seen.
I forgot this. They name drop Chorley.
Chorley.
The journalist from Web of Fear. Apparently now he's a veteran TV presenter of the show Yours Chorley.
Oh, God.
That's what's so wonderful about this. Is all these little things.
So Mark Platt really is pretty good in long form. It's just
he
just needs a budget.
I've heard that Ghostlight, the book, is so much better than the show.
It almost seems like his.
Footsie with you.
It seems more like his ideas are so beyond what they could do at the time.
Maybe that's it.
Maybe he would have him write a two-parter for New Who, and it might be phenomenal because he could truly present what he was. We'll
have him write it, and then we'll have we'll invite Peter Jackson on to direct it.
Well, there you go.
then Stephen Moffat can come in and go, we can't afford this, we can't afford this, we can't afford this. And he'll be screaming, you told me I had money!
Celia, that's her name.
Celia.
Yeah, took me a little while.
It's not even short for Doris.
Or similar.
That would have been so cool, though. Celia.
Glenn's brain would have melted.
I would have. It would have made that book even 1,000 times better. we obviously don't need to review the next two, but I think we certainly need to allude to the fact that, and I think we did a little bit before, is that obviously Downtime sort of laid the groundwork, I think, in Moffat's
Very
mind,
much so.
adapting the idea of the Wi-Fi and the intelligence using it, as you have mentioned, what's her name, Kinsit?
Yeah.
Is really kind of in the same Kislet is kind of in the same boat as Victoria, but even
similar.
more so because at this point the Great Intelligence has really taken her over, and she has really reshaped her mind. Because as we know, when he leaves at the end, she's reverted to a child when he first found her,
and obviously has been with her longer.
How old is Kislet? Ballpark, do we think?
50s, maybe?
Okay.
Yeah, 50s.
How many years between the events of...
Less than 30.
Oh.
Yeah. But see, here's the thing is, and this is what I kind of talked about. That's what I kind of talked about last week, is because we're dealing with the astral plane, I don't think time works the same way.
Yeah, that's true.
And because in the same sense that the intelligence can kind of be several places at the same time, I think he can be at several times at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think he's always been trying to find ways to manipulate the system and come through to reality, to our plane. And so I think he even though these are all different events that are linear, I think he's got irons in the fire everywhere. And I think that's why I think that you can have...
So it's probably more of a direct line from Web of Fear, that she was maybe somebody that he had nabbed a hold of before being sent off to the astral
maybe so,
plane.
yeah, being trapped. But I also think that perhaps things leak through.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe the Great Intelligence, just as he did with Pamela Vandervaal, I'm still not getting the name right. It was a slow process of... It wasn't like, boom, he was in control of her. It was more of a... He just got a greater hold as she grew older and manipulated what she was doing. And so this is kind of a life she would have led. But at the point where she gets to the point we are in the Bells of St. John, when he leaves, she's completely reverted back because she goes back to the point where there was no essence of him in her at all.
Yeah.
So I think this is stretching it. This is maybe retconning a little bit, but I think that's the idea that I was trying to present last week. That was even though you've got 19th century Victorian London, where we really kind of see the birth of the Great Intelligence, and then it's pointed out that it's only 40 years later that the Tibetan monastery happens, but you get the impression that Padmas Vanzaba was, that the intelligence had sort of inhabited him for almost 300 years because the doctor, was gone for 300 years and he was still around. So that's why I say I think you kind of have to think of it outside the box as to how the Great Intelligence works. And so that's why I think it still works there. That's why I still think it works for Downtime. I think when in the events is when the intelligence has manifested here as much, the greatest that he could at those certain points. And so that's why those are, he's at him as his strongest. So that's why those are peak points. And I think even when we get to the Bells of St. John, he really is still in the process of his plan, and it gets thwarted earlier than it does in any of the other stories. But he's now, at this point, feeding on people through the Wi-Fi in the same way that he was feeding on a group of people in Downtime.
Yeah.
So he's kind of altered his operations a little bit, but he's still looking for world domination. It's not until we get to the name of the Doctor
that he actually has a different plan.
Well, it's not even so much that he has a plan. He's beyond world domination now. He's been thwarted by the Doctor so many times at this point it's revenge, and he makes that clear. That's all his MO in that one is he's going to go in and ruin the Doctor's timeline. That's all he's going to do. He knows he's going to die in the process. He says that. It's just revenge. That's his ultimate modus operandi. I mean, that's what he's looking for. That's all he cares at that point. And I think that's a neat dichotomy shift for a villain, because when your method of operation has been the same from story to story, and you continue to fail, suddenly it's like, you know what? I don't care. I'm gonna.
Well,
I just to heck with you.
It's something that works because you can't necessarily do it with any other character. I mean, we joked about the Master's MO, which was always, I'm going to show up and be in disguise, and then I'm going to team up with the alien menace to take over, and it's never going to work out, and then I'm going to have to team up with the Doctor to stop it. Or you look at the Daleks, who are, we're going to come in and screw up somewhere along the line and not make it, then the Doctor will thwart us. If you changed one of those fundamentally, and you suddenly completely rewrite the character, that it doesn't work anymore. I mean, the Daleks, quite honestly, would be kind of scary, frightening if they German blitzkrieged their way through a planet, and that was it.
Well, I'll tell you,
there was no grand state. It was just, I'm going to kill everybody now. That's it. Exterminate for real.
I think Moffat also took the Daleks in a different direction with Asylum of the Daleks.
Yeah.
And I think he's been really good. He's been really good at doing that. But it's certainly what you're.
But I mean, if that's a slow step in a slightly different direction versus a complete reversal.
Yeah.
Whereas the Great Intelligence, we've had 6 stories, if you include downtime.
Yeah.
6 stories.
5, right?
5.
It's 6 total.
Well,
it's 3 and 3
plus downtime. Oh no,
yeah,
that's part of the 3. So the first trilogy
not
is
counting Name of the
classics.
Doctor, you've got 5 stories.
Okay, so we've had 5 stories
so
with this particular, I'm going to take over the world, and it doesn't work out. And so now it is a complete change. Screw this noise. I'm going after you because you're the
reason why. You're the reason why.
None of the rest of these have shown up, even though he wasn't responsible for downtime, but peripherally, maybe. Stupid. If he didn't have companions, and it would have worked. But anyway, so now all of a sudden it's like, I'm willing to sacrifice myself and off myself. And you can do that with the Great Intelligence because it's kind of a forgotten villain. You couldn't do that with the Daleks, where we've rewritten them to the point where they're the end. You couldn't do that with the Master, that nobody would really genuinely believe that this is the end-all, be-all, and now he's gone.
Right.
People still wouldn't believe it. The Great Intelligence may be gone forever. This may legitimately be the end of it because of that change. And I think that's really kind of cool.
Yeah.
That in a show that is always about the possibility of somebody coming back, something coming back, this may be it.
I think that
the thing with Name of the Doctor, too, is looking at it from a Great Intelligence aspect, there seems to be some missed opportunities of the development of the Whispermen, how he gets to Trenzalore, how if just him in Victorian London again, it's kind of hard to wait. So is this him from his future that traveled back in time? How did he do that? There's a lot of stuff just from a Great Intelligence aspect that could be better explored.
You nailed it on the head, because the first time that I watched this, I had watched all the Great Intelligence stuff before, but there was enough of a gap here that when I watched The Name of the Doctor, I watched it in the context of Series 7.
Yes.
And it's a good story. It's a really strong story in the context of the series, of that particular season. But then you're right. When you put it all together and you start to apply, there's a lot of things that, you're right. It's missed opportunities. It's not even missed opportunities. It's almost like
how does this work?
Throwaways. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like, how does he get to Trenzalore? Why is he still existing? And he's had so much of a trouble getting to reality. Now, I get the impression that the Whispermen are kind of his key to his moving through to this plane and being able to
keep in mind, though,
move and transport.
There's a difference here, too, between all of the previous adventures up to Bells of St. John. He was not only defeated, but sent back to the astral plane. Bells of St. John ends and he was defeated, but only the operation was defeated. The last thing he says to Kislet is, I have grown, it's time for you to diminish.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
So he could be completely free. He doesn't have control of the Wi-Fi anymore. He doesn't have this, but he has grown to the point
enough
where
that he can do whatever he wants.
Well, at least to a point where he utilizes the Whispermen as his vehicle and no longer needs the conventional means that he had in the past. That's actually what works the best for me, is the fact that the Whispermen aren't
like the web or the pyramids or the spheres or the foam or anything else that was a vehicle for the great intelligence to move through to reality, the Whispermen were their own entity, and it almost seems like
he somehow
basically...
created.
No, I don't think he created them. I get the impression that they were his own. They were their own thing, and he found a way to utilize them so that he could use his astral form in reality. Now that he has grown strong enough to be here, that he still has to have a vehicle, and now he has found the perfect vehicle, and they're almost like willing servants as opposed to unwilling servants in the past, where he's
It's
had
not
to
like
take...
he's hypnotized them and
Exactly,
taken them over.
exactly. It's almost like
he's
a
got henchmen
symbiotic.
now.
It's like a symbiotic relationship, in my opinion.
Could be.
Because I think he exists in all of them, and that's the idea that he gives when he peels the face off, and then the other guy, and it's him. I get the impression that he's created a symbiotic relationship with the Whispermen, and suddenly that's how he can be here materially. Now, it still doesn't explain how he got to Trinzalore, but it does explain why he's existing in our reality.
Well, and the explanation of the Whispermen also helps the fact that he has changed his motive and his want, because all along he's wanted a physical form. Now he has it in the form of Whispermen. So now he's going to want something else.
Right. Well, that's a good point.
It's also true that he can manifest himself as Richard E. Grant. That's now the form that he's chosen to take from the Snowmen on, is that he had gained enough oomph that he could go, okay, here it is.
Yeah.
And whether the Whispermen help facilitate that, or as part of the symbiotic relationship, or it's just that he's gotten powerful enough within his plane of existence to create that physical manifestation. So yeah, I could go either way with it.
While he's always come across as his goal has been world domination, his initial primary goal has always been a physical form.
Yeah. Well,
or even way back to the Abominable Snowmen.
But see, that's a way to the means to me.
Yeah.
That he's just never gotten the means, so he doesn't get to. Or he didn't get the means. He's gotten in order to get world domination domination is because he was never able to manifest wholly. So, but you're right, it certainly is another step, because he now has obtained at least manifestation in this world. Now it doesn't necessarily, maybe once he got here he thought, well, maybe world domination isn't the way to go. Maybe destroying all of time and space is the way to go.
Well, up your game.
We've got to think bigger.
$1 million. $1 million.
The best example of that's got to be DuckTales the movie, when Scrooge gets the lamp and he's like, I could own a diamond mine. No, I could own the world's largest diamond mine. No, I could own all of the diamond mines. No, the entire mining industry. Yes. That to me was like, this is a guy that's got it together and is figuring this out. I can see the great intelligence having that discussion with himself. The Whispermen are sitting around nodding. Yeah, boss, sure, whatever you want. Playing cards in the background. You do whatever you want, boss. Just call us when you're ready. So I went back and watched pieces of Name of the Doctor to kind of gear up for this. Once again, just devastated over what a waste the Whispermen really were.
They could have been such
a cool concept villain that ultimately became the henchman standing in the background going, yeah, boss, you do whatever you want. Let us know when you're ready. And oh, man. But,
that's what's so also interesting about the Great Intelligence news series stories is while he's there and important, he's kind of still background, too.
Yeah.
Because of the character, or Clara's storyline.
Yeah.
Well, and nobody remembers Web of Fear as a Great Intelligence story. They remember Web of Fear as the Yeti story.
Oh, yeah.
The same with Abominable Snowman. It's nobody's going to go into the Snowman and think, oh, wow, it's Killer Snowman. It's all about...
Well, who remembered those stories as Great Intelligence stories? Stephen Moffat.
Yeah.
Because he chose to do the Great Intelligence as opposed to bringing back the Yeti, which were probably the popularity of those shows.
part of me, I'm going to go on the side of definitely, and I said this before, Steve Moffat knew what they had found in Nigeria.
Yeah, that's probably...
That he knew for sure that Web of Fear
That's
had been
probably
discovered,
like
and so he tailored this to help tie into that reveal. I also think from a producing standpoint that when you look at the Great Intelligence and you go, it's formless, shapeless, astral plane, I could get Richard E. Grant, fantastic, versus Yeti.
Yeah.
For a new series show, it's like, how do you...
Well, that's certainly true, too.
How do you redesign the Yeti and make it believable?
Yeah.
And,
absolutely. That's what it's... And was it Chrissy?
Really
Chrissy's one that brought that up, was the fact that, this is the best adversary to bring back because you can shape it in any way you want.
Now, are there fans, myself included, who would be kind of like, yay, Robot Yeti are back on Doctor... Yeah, absolutely. If you could find a vehicle that made them essential to the story, if you just brought them back as Robot Yeti attacking London, I would groan because it's not believable.
Well,
and I don't think the audience today would buy into it.
No.
But if you did a story in the Himalayas and you could find a reason for doing it, okay, sure, why not? Robot Yeti run amok.
It's like Ice Warriors in Series 7. It's finding a different way to do it. Is important.
Yeah. Agreed. And to me, honestly, now granted, I had never seen the two stories, but I knew about the Yeti mostly because of the Five Doctors. the Yeti did return in a very actually plausible way in the 20th anniversary because of the way that it's structured. It makes sense for that Yeti to be there, and so that was a nice little nod to the past as well. And I think that I was kind of satisfied with that, and I've always been. So I'm like you. If they could find out a really clever way to bring them back, but I just don't think that they would work in modern day.
Well, all right. They could run amok at the zoo. Apparently.
Like the Prime Minister.
One other quick thing on that.
Sure.
I was unprepared, for as much as I think The Whispermen are wasted, it's kind of strange, but the parts of the story arc that really grabbed me this time out were the Doctor's relationships with River, and all of those interpersonal bits and pieces. Whereas the first time going through this, I think we were all focused on Clara and the lead up and the open and what the heck is going on. And then the Great Intelligence shows up and what is your name and all that kind of stuff. And River's kind of just this extra thread, it seemed like at first. And I think we even questioned, why is she here? Because it almost seems like she doesn't serve much purpose to the story. Going back and watching it this time, those are the parts of the story that I really found myself gravitating to.
We did too this time.
And was just stuck on how heartbreaking it is when he grabs her hand there at the end and they share that moment. And it's just like, oh, I'm sad all over again and she's gone. And I think it's funny because I just read something that Matt Smith said at a convention that apparently he has kind of told Moffat, he's like, because Moffat's been giving him little updates, that he said, just don't give her any scenes with Capaldi. He says that I'm very possessive of Alex Kingston. River's mine. I just thought that was really funny.
And I think I was the hardest on the fact that River was there. While it still made sense in the story to me, I was kind of the one going, I don't know that it was really necessary. It felt like it was kind of overused. But as I watched this time, I did the same thing. I focused more on that narrative and what was going on there in that story. And it occurred to me that really the Doctor never really got a chance to say goodbye to River because...
Well, he doesn't like goodbyes.
Well, but at the beginning of his timeline with River, she dies. And so he's already lived that and gone through that. And we're kind of left with...
He's already said goodbye.
Not a lot by the end of Series 7 or 6... in the way of a departure or a finale or anything like that. We're really not left with anything. So this was really a way to twofold, kind of by linking back to where she is after she essentially dies in that mainframe. It really was a nice way to kind of do this little bridge from the beginning to the end and not have to disrupt anything in between and still give those moments of really... They were a lot more emotional for me this time, and so I really appreciated it this time. And I think I've seen this. This is my third viewing, but at third glance, it certainly was much more appropriate and worked for the story a lot better. So
good.
I'm
glad you came down on the happy side of that one because Keith and I were sad for a long time. That you were so adamant that she serves no purpose to them.
I don't think it was so much that I said shelter of purchase. It was the vehicle to get her there was what bothered me.
Yeah.
But I kind of glossed over that this time.
Hand wave.
Yeah, it sort of made more sense that she still has dreams in the Matrix. So,
Yeah.
all right, Sean, what do we got coming up next on the schedule? We're almost there, by the way. So if you haven't got a lot of your homework done, we've got to get it done quick.
If she still has dreams in the Matrix is essentially a giant what?
Computer.
Gee, I may not be dead.
That's a good point.
Ooh. He comes back as River.
Ooh. No.
No.
All right.
Stephen Moffat, you didn't hear
I'm
that.
fine with where they leave River.
Yeah.
No, not because I want River back, just because it would screw the Doctor up pretty bad.
Yeah.
All right, so any other thoughts then on the Great Intelligence?
No.
I think that's it.
All right. All righty, well, coming up this week for Friday Night Who is For to Doomsday with Peter Davidson. It's May, so we are celebrating the fifth Doctor in the fifth month. Unlike last year when we didn't.
Well, we celebrated him just not in the fifth month.
We celebrated him in the 6th month, because that's how we do things. This year we're going in the 5th month. And then our show next week, which is
Fast approaching.
3 days away, will be our review of 4 to Doomsday and ebook 5, Tip of the Tongue, which I've not read yet, but Glenn's making a tip of the tongue face. His tongue is out.
I think I have like 10 pages left.
I haven't started it yet, but
Sorry, I don't want to.
Shouldn't take me too long.
Taint your print. No, it's only 30-some pages.
Yeah,
Oh, they're getting shorter
like 30.
again.
It's less than 40.
Thankfully.
As much as she's in it.
So that's your homework assignment, immediate, kids. If you haven't got that done, get your finals wrapped up and then read the ebook. And then next week, we have Dalek for Friday Night Who with Christopher Eccleston. And a little bit of bigger homework for you, because our show the following week, 178, is the adaptation argument, where we will be reviewing Dalek and the supposed story that it's based on, Big Finish Mainline number 40, Jubilee. And so we'll kind of be comparing and contrasting those. The following week, the end of May, we get Caves of Adrazani. Finally.
Yay!
And a whole show on Caves for 179. And the following week, first week of June being the 6th month, can you guess what we're doing?
6th Doctor stuff?
You'd be right.
Yay!
Twin Dilemma?
We're doing Glenn's absolute all-time favorite Doctor Who story, The Twin Dilemma, which will come nicely right on the heels of Caves. And then our show number 180.
Actually, that's the best thing about doing it at this point, is it makes sense.
Well,
And this is the first time I'm going to have something like this.
Yeah.
Now we watched the whole Key to Time in order.
No, I mean
and Trial of the Time Lord.
I mean a regeneration.
Oh.
So yeah, he'll get both ends of the regeneration now.
First time.
Well, Doctor Who the movie, you get the outgoing and
that's
incoming.
That's true.
All of the
Yeah,
Tennant
not
stuff
going
going into Matt Smith.
Yeah, but I already seen the Matt Smith stuff before I got to
But
the
you got
second
Eccleston
generation.
going into.
Oh, okay, there we
no,
go.
because we
those in
watched
order.
Time of Angels and Blink before he even got back to see Eccleston.
Okay, I suppose that's true.
He had already seen some David Tennant.
Well, he's already seen some Peter Davidson and Colin
I
Baker.
suppose that's true.
Anyway,
Okay, so 7 to 8 and 9 to 10 are the two I actually saw in order.
Ah, there you go.
That's it.
Well, good news is you'll get to see
That's true.
4 to 5 too. So
no, 5 to 6. Well, yeah,
you'll get to see.
he
4
will
to
get to
5
see
as
4 to
well.
5 as well. But I'm saving that one for last because it's going to be hard for me.
Oh, you don't care about poor Chrissy.
No, I don't care about
You're-
poor Chrissy.
you're putting through this
throwing her through
in
the
2
fire
weeks.
now. In her birthday month, no less.
I know.
So, Caves of Adrazani and the end of May, Twin Dilemma at the beginning of June, and then show number 180 will be Twin Dilemma, and ebook number 6, Something Borrowed. And that's kind of where I've left it up to this point, because there's that crazy rumor that New Who's going to start in July, which I'm not sure I believe,
I'm
but
not sure I believe it either.
Yeah, I
but you
don't
know
either.
what? I'd be excited if it did. You know, I think they announced that on Easter weekend, didn't
it was Easter Saturday.
they? Easter Saturday.
Yeah. I don't know. I It seems wrong from a timing standpoint. It seems wrong from we would be rushed to get it. I mean, we're still announcing directors for the season, so it seems odd to me that
I haven't got a single trailer.
We
yet.
haven't got a trailer. We haven't got a poster. We haven't got a list of episode titles for July. Now, July 30th. Yeah, I could see maybe end of July going into August.
Well, did it say when in July?
It just said
July.
Yeah, just everything has said July.
Well, the 30th is still in July, so
yeah. So no, I don't think we're going to have it for the 4th of July. But
No.
I think we will be.
Well, it's a good old patriotic show.
Yeah. So that, as we say, is that.
All right. Well,
And now it's time for us to diminish.
is there anything else that we should talk about before we turn this show loose and go to bed, or put the show to bed, or whatever we're doing in this show?
Thank you for being patient with me during finals week, and I'm very sorry that I made Batman sad.
I think most people understand.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if that's going to do it for this week, until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.